Hello, everybody. Welcome. Aurora here. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is January 11th, 2022, if you can believe it. And just pulling up my notes. Sorry, that's the other thing. I did my squinting and scrolling before we got going on class, but now I'm just pulling up my notes. And when you see me looking off to the side, that's what I've got over here. And I send out these notes via email to everybody who's officially enrolled. I just wanted to make sure I have this correct. Level 1, Lesson 9. Pedro, thank you for being here. We're joking in the chat about yes, and wait. Okay, you rewind, because Chris is also reminding me, wait a minute, it's 2023, isn't it? So now let's start from the beginning where I'm not distracted. January 11th, 2023. Fabulous. Level 1, Lesson 9, DNA and the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Thank you for allowing me the bumpy start as I was literally just arriving back from WALKing my DOG. So that way we don't have too much time pressure, and made myself some awesome superfood coffee to be able to be fortified for what we're talking about today. So very excited. So again, thank you for the bumpy start. Today is one of the most awesome classes that I teach about, because it is about the actual DNA mechanics of what we are doing when we do this maneuver that is known as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna, far from a mere theoretical concept that we talk about endlessly in class, it is an actual verb, it is an embodiment, and it is an actual physical dance that I perform, do, embody, and share with others. It's not necessarily a performance, which is why I hesitated over that word, because it is not necessarily a dance where the primary consideration is the viewpoint of the viewer. In this dance, the primary consideration is from the viewpoint of experiencer. That is what matters a lot more. So this is all about what this class right here is all about, what you're actually doing on a genetic level when you do this DNA oscillation. That is really about the oscillation of the singularity or singularity, however we want to use language to talk about this, which is also known as the source or source. The primary concept here about what we're doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna is taking this central convergence point and being able to comprehend that it is within you and within the sun or another dance partner at the same time. So I often use the sun and the stars and the sky. These are wonderful dance partners to collaborate with. There is singularity inside of almost everything. I hesitated again over saying everything, but it's a doorway to infinity. And it is about mastering the concept of what that doorway to infinity is and the profound ramifications of that in terms of your own body structure. So you're like, wait, Aurora, you're already diving in. So I'm diving in far. We're going deep today, people. Get ready. Okay, the first thing is your DNA is not a flat, static object. So we're going to start with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is everything. It is a concept, just like a piece of thought structure that flies around and floats around. Yes, it is that as a waveform or simply open source code in the larger overarching thought structure of the cosmos. And I created or invented it. That's actually part of what I recorded 10 years ago. And, I share that part of the recorded materials without that much emotion. And it's 20 years plus post incident. And so I don't have that much emotion when I share it, but it was a experience that was filled with a lot of turmoil. I hope that it is understood and characterized that when I created this was not like sitting peacefully on a cloud, just kind of dreaming things up one day and then like, oh, lasagna. It really wasn't that. It was really an aspect of augmentation and self-augmentation within the larger time field that is alive, the larger time animal, and within the divine presence of consciousness that we know as God or divine intelligence, to create something that was a very much needed response to problems in the situation known as life and existence. It was created out of necessity. There's that whole phrase about necessity being the mothers of invention, which then makes me want to go into a silly tangent into Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention band. Don't make me go there. This is the beginning, not the end. I don't sing show tunes yet. But necessity is the mother of invention. So there was a very out of balance situation, which is how I often characterize my existence as Aurora. So I am Aurora here, embodied as per the end result of the flying rainbow lasagna genetic oscillation. That is, the flying rainbow lasagna has many multiple tools, just kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It can do a lot of things. One of those things that it can do is to create a bridge or communication structure between formerly divergent realms. So outside of time, space, and reality, or hyperspace, or that world that is beyond this world, used to have a lot of difficulty in terms of getting consciousness, ideas, and information here into what I call a closed system, like a terrarium. A terrarium is one of those globes or geometric structures that has glass and then plants inside. And once you seal it up, put the cork on top, or you seal it up, it does not admit additional nutrients or not additional water, but it does allow in for additional light. So in that sense, it's not the same. Like light is information. I talk all about that in Path of Light. But how about in terms of the human terrarium, known as your planet, planetary structure, and also planetary sphere or plane of existence, was having a lot of difficulty in receiving new light, which is what I also call groceries or information coming in from outside of the system in order to rectify the system. And this all speaks to the genesis, the why of flying rainbow lasagna. Why Aurora? Why flying rainbow lasagna? Why bring yourself on in here? Why not be on an interdimensional cloud, you know, whatever, drinking nectar of ambrosia or something like that? And the answer is because there have been systemic imbalances in the structure of the cosmos, in the structure of both time, space, and consciousness. Someone is showing up for class over here. Do you know who it is? This is Cheeky. For anyone who's new or watching this video out of order, this is Cheeky the boss, and she is absolutely an important part of class. So she's coming on in here to supervise and supervise us as we go through this. And I joked with you guys before I got recording. I already did her WALK. That's why I arrived a little breathless, so that way we don't have to rush in order to accommodate her. Imbalances at the larger meta formation level of our world that threatened the integrity and structural integrity of the entirety of our world, that provided the impetus and motivation for self-augmentation within the system to create a way of fixing things. So that is what flying rainbow lasagna is. And I have a whole treatise on this, and I look forward to doing the formal class that is the treatise on flying rainbow lasagna. This is a response to the imbalances in the cosmos that threatened my existence at a higher dimensional level, consciousness itself, the stability of time itself, the existence of the cosmos. And it was basically necessary to be able to perform a corrective action. And that corrective action is, I jokingly call it, a backbend in time, a way of coming, from my perspective, backwards into time, as I'm also have already graduated in terms of being a graduating class member from several generations ago, to be as consciousness, to be able to return here into this level of being where I'm telling you guys, we did things differently in the past. And I've joked about this quite a lot in terms of eating light directly, structuring our social dynamics differently, structuring our energy dynamics differently, and also the inevitability of consciousness transcendence, which is known as ascendance, which is when you go back directly to the source without any of this hitting into the membrane of death, long circuitous figure eight shaped routes and spirals that bring you eventually to your destination, but also include a lot of seeking, searching, missteps, and wrong notes. Flying rainbow lasagna is the rectification. And a lot, why am I even going into my personal backstory? Because I don't speak about it that much. I drink some of my soup, fortify myself with my superfood, fantastic coffee here. I share what is relevant in terms of my personal journey. People in my life know me a lot more, and I share more of my personal journey with them. And I thank people for being, having a friendship relationship with me and being able to see me on my journey. When I share here in this video, I am motivated beyond egotism, really to give a contextualization of why flying rainbow lasagna needed to happen and what was my personal motivation for being able to do that. And also to tell you Like any thought that is innovative, that happens in the cosmos, once I thought the thought of flying rainbow lasagna and created a new formation or crinkling of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, that formation becomes available to everyone, everywhere, everywhen. And that is very big. So when I created and spontaneously invented this, it is first of all a solution that does not disrespect the truthfulness and validity of all cosmic law leading up to that moment. It's like saying when you do a math proof at higher levels of purely theoretical math, it still respects and encompasses the basic truth of 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 + 2 = 4. You're not just, peeing and pooping all over that. You're really respecting that as the basic foundation of what is math. And that is also part of the challenge and fulfillment of the activity of solving math at higher levels, that you're like, it's truthful down here, 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 and even all the way up at this level. So flying rainbow lasagna is an additional level of augmentation or layer of truth that, in the definition of what is truth, has no conflict between the other layers of truth that have already been established coming up to that point. And it also offers a tool for rectification or reorganization of the fabric of space-time, both time and matter or pure energy, time or pure energy and matter as it is experienced, experiences in your life, and the potentials for your life. It is, was, and remains necessary for me to be here, oscillating into this body, even while I'm at the same concurrent existence outside of reality, in order to bring in fresh groceries, which are fresh conceptual postures, concepts, structures, like your posture is what holds you up, thought postures that hold you up, that relate to your capacitation and conception of where you are in time, what is going on, what is meaningful, and what you can do. You can do more. Since the moment that I invented this, you could do more. And not just you, but all consciousness everywhere. As Hat Tip to Pedro, we joke a lot in this class about the pooties, pesky occupiers of the interstices, P-O-O-T-I-S, the consciousnesses that are smeared on the membrane of death. Not merely there as a transit point where, again, if you died, you would go through that transit point, go through your life review, come to understand everything, get resolved. And the giant sweater of you that has been knit throughout the events of your life would be unfurled. And we'll talk about this as it relates to DNA and chromatin. You would go back to the beginning as a giant ball of yarn and then begin to reknit that sweater again as a new series of events, possibilities, and probabilities on a slightly different trajectory or time track through the larger levels of probability, the larger structure of probability and possibility, until you are focused to the point of being the essential self, going up that central core timeline and essentially living as God's divine plan, God overarching abstract intelligence beyond deification on a human level, the plan of higher consciousness for you in terms of what you're supposed to be doing in each moment. And it's tall order. Be like, you want to go back to the source? Fine. Be a perfect person at every moment. Like that, like, you kind of cringe down a little bit. That's hard. It's hard. It's like play a perfect symphony throughout your whole entire life, never play a wrong note. Then you get to go back to the source. Challenging to say the least, daunting to say the least. What am I looking for over here? I did set up before class, I promise you. I'm looking for this little crystal that I exemplify as my time crystal, my Christ crystal. When you are able to activate your Christ chakra, your brow chakra, the eye of time that you use to directly perceive the fabric of time, space, and consciousness, it becomes a lot easier to go through life without making a ton of mistakes, because you're able to actually see what you're doing and know what's going to happen before you do it. So a lot less of this laborious trial and error, wrong note, wrong note, wrong note, pecking around on the keyboard until you actually find the right note. So flying rainbow lasagna is something that I created spontaneously for the resolution of this particular life's journey. That actually was someone else's life journey for the first 27 years of existence. that I have taken on the mantle. Like these are the mantle goes onto my shoulders, responsibility onto my shoulders, as soon as I chose to come into this body, this DNA structure, the circumstances of this life, and everything that I am doing, I take, this is what I say, the math does not belie or come into conflict with anything else that has already happened. I take on the circumstances that were created by the previous occupant of this body and build upon those events. So it's the same thing with reality structures. The flying rainbow lasagna is not an eraser where you're like, magic eraser, that Mr. Clean magic eraser that just erases everything, erase everything back to complete whiteness. And move more light on my face over here. Not just erasing everything to pure whiteness and non-existence, and then starting from the beginning. No, and that's actually maybe a bit reductionist to be like, I don't like this painting, get a rag soaked in turpentine and just wipe out everything. This is more selective than that. This is about building another layer on top of the oil painting without having to wipe away or chip away at every single event that has happened up until this point, even things that appear to be out of balance or somehow unfair. So we talk now and refer now to the genetic abnormalities that have been normalized and seen as normative in this world. Things like death being an inevitability, the necessity of eating other plants and animals causing death. I am not in judgment here. Hello, I am drinking my wonderful magical superfood over here. I am not in judgment for the ingestion of physical items, including other plants and animals, in order to stay alive. It's what I had to learn in this particular format where I've come in order to create an example of how you transcend the genetic abnormalities that have been programmed into your program and return to factory settings. Factory settings. Aurora, what are you talking about? If I grab my phone, like when you get a problem with your phone, you get a virus on your phone or whatever, like panic, distress, what's going to happen? You press this button that goes return to factory settings. And that brings you back to the original intended functioning of the operating system and programming of that phone so that it works again. Your body has factory settings. Your DNA has factory settings that come from the divine composer of all of this amazing music of the symphony of life, the way that you are supposed to be shaped. And here are some of those factory settings: being an eternal consciousness, not hitting the membrane of death, but being on an eternal journey of lossless signal. That means that your consciousness, sense of self, truthful nature has longevity. It continues onward. There's this presumption here in this world that like, you're going to start out high and then kind of like devolve into crapitude. No, that's not what the truthful nature of your factory settings are. Your factory settings as an eternal being is to have like a song of you. La la, this is who I am. Keeps on going. And it keeps on going, but doesn't get wavery, peter off, stop, or become deformed in some way. Is the factory settings of the truthful nature of who you are, which is eternal, and your signal stays strong throughout all of these experiences, and you're continually also being refined and on a journey of learning. So all of this really relates to DNA. What is DNA? It is a bridge of light between your physical, somatic, multicellular container body that we can all see, like I'm touching my face, like I'm drinking my coffee, like this is something that exists, and things that are intangible, ephemeral, or seen by some as purely theoretical. Your light body, your body of possibilities, probabilities, and the colors that are seen not with our optical physical eyes, but are seen instead with our inner eye or higher eyesight. That, well, let me just change this over to me. This image is one of these primary pictures, paintings that I use all the time in order to be able to share. This is your light body surrounding and interpenetrating physical anthropomorphic, meaning human-shaped body. So this is your body of pure time, of pure information, of pure possibilities and probabilities. And your DNA is a bridge of light that exists on a cellular, actually a subcellular, molecular level that encompasses and interacts with all of the information, pure energy that is in the state of pure awareness or consciousness that exists as this light body. And it connects to not only the physical structures of your body, but your eyes, color and shape of your eyes, color and shape of your hair, and very, very overt descriptors of our presence here, but also what you're doing from moment to moment. Because DNA is more than just a blueprint that tells your protein structures how to be shaped. It does do that. And I sent out early this morning. Hold on, let me drink some of my superfood here. So as part of this class for over 10 years, I've been sending out a particular YouTube that is about supercoiling in order to demonstrate this. And then there was a copyright issue, not from me. I'm totally innocent, I swear, on sharing out that video. So I just found a couple of other videos that are made by the same animator that is like a scientific educational foundation that creates these animations of what DNA is doing and then make it available actually to other educators to be able to use in their lectures. So I'm not using it here as a screen grab, but I sent it out and I will include those descriptions in the video description so that you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about supercoiling. And also when I talk about some of the behaviors of DNA. Because DNA is not a flat, static object. For those of you who have been in my class a lot, this is review, but hopefully you can re-internalize it. Your DNA is often shown in books and textbooks as either an X like this, or a Y shape like this. That is a chromosome. So I actually can show you a picture of, a drawing of what a chromosome looks like. This is not my drawing, but I brought these all up just so that you can see. What is supercoiling? So this X shape over here, and I can make it bigger for you. Okay, now we're zoomed in a lot, even though I've lost resolution, but that X shape. Oh, great. Rainbow Body says the DNA vids are great. I'm so pleased to hear that you got them and you were able to watch them because a video is worth 1,000,000 of my moving mouth parts. So this is an X-shaped chromosome, and it is the end result of when we go through this process. Let me make it a little bit smaller now, of supercoiling. Supercoiling is knitting the genetic sweater. Let's make this as big as we can on your screen. Hopefully this will fill up as much as you can see. So again, this is not my drawing. This is a simplified diagram where you can see beginning with one strand of DNA, which is similar to like a piece of yarn. And then in the process of supercoiling, which means adding energy by twisting something up, you begin by coiling that yarn around these histones or proteins that are similar to a spool, like a spool of thread. And we begin this complex winding pattern. And as you do this complex winding pattern, what happens is it starts to create donut shapes that are known as toruses or tori. So at the level of your DNA, you have tori or donut shapes. And at the level of your larger overarching surrounding energy field, you have torus shapes. And these two torus shapes interrelate. What your little tiny subcellular torus shapes are doing relates to your big giant energy field torus shapes. And that's a truism for when you do flying rainbow lasagna. Because when you lasagna with your DNA, it has the effect or the complementary motion of changing your larger energy field shape and the ramifications of what that means. So as more and more energy of this stored kinetic energy is energy of movement. So the movement energy is stored up as you twist and twist and twist and kind of weave and crochet this DNA into more complex weavings. Eventually it becomes like a thick giant kind of braided rope. And then eventually that braided rope becomes the tightly coiled X or Y chromosome. This process of tightly coiling, kind of think of it as rolling up a scroll. So you have DNA, here it is laid out like this. Here it is rolling up like a scroll, like an old-fashioned papyrus, and it comes together and it rolls up into all of these different scrolls, and all of these different scrolls then get rolled up into a big giant scroll, and then that big giant scroll gets rolled up into itself. Why is this done? This is done for topological or surface, topology equals surface, efficiency. When you are going to go on an airplane and you want to get all of your clothing into your carry-on bag, what do? You guys know about this? How do you pack your clothes most effectively? Packing your clothes most effectively, you don't fold them, actually, you roll. You roll up all of your socks and you roll up all of your underwears and you roll up all of your t-shirts, kind of like into sausage shapes, and you roll everything up within itself. And that's how you can use the space to maximum efficiency to be able to get all of your important stuff into your suitcase, zip it up so it will fit in that little container that goes on the airplane, okay? This is exactly what your DNA does during a portion of the cell's lifespan. So your cell has a lifespan, and of course we are referring now to everything that is contextually within the level of the world of mortality and death. Again, responding to the world where the context is the sun and the stars coalesce, exist, and are sustained, and then eventually die. We are moving out of this relative context, but in this context right now, your cells have a similar lifespan. The creation or generation of those cells, their sustenance, and then their death. So blah, 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 blah. Your DNA is doing many important things in terms of carrying information. Light is information. Your DNA is a bridge of light. Your DNA carries information, not only bridging protein structures and potential realities to the blueprint that contains them, but and also being a bridge between, I don't want to lose my thought train here. I should rewind. You can tell my mind is working. Your DNA is carrying information not only to your progeny, your little babies that come out and form the next generation, but to the next generation of cells within the homeostasis of your present body form. So how are your cells born, sustained, and created? They come from the parent cell. Here's the parent cell here. At a certain point, that parent cell subdivides and becomes a new offshoot, which is the daughter cell. And that process happens only during a very brief portion of the lifespan of your cell. So when your cell is going to prepare to do that, it's like getting ready to go on an airplane voyage. And what the cell needs to do is roll up all of its socks and t-shirts into the most effective packing method to then be able to prepare for the time when the nuclear membrane dissolves and the DNA is essentially just hanging out there in space as it is subdivided into these two new cells that happen as the end result of the end of the original cell. That subdivision process is called mitosis or cell division. So your DNA is, just getting rid of that distraction, your DNA is being replicated. Your DNA is all about copying information. It copies information and brings it on to your children's generation if you have children. But if you do not have children, your DNA is still very relevant to you because you're constantly generating new generations of cells where information must be transferred from the original form of what your cells are doing into the next generation. And you're doing this constantly as a regenerative process to maintain your homeostasis, staying alive, okay? So for the largest portion of a cell's lifespan and behavior, everything is not tightly coiled up into a chromosome. When everything's coiled up as a chromosome, there's not very much movement that is happening. And that is essential for it to be kind of like in its tiny little shell, become into the next cell. And then what happens in the next cell? What happens when you get to your destination? You open up your suitcase and everything explodes outward. You've got socks, you've got t-shirts, you've got your toothbrush, you've got everything all over your hotel room or wherever you are, because you're going to need that stuff. And then when it's time to get on the airplane, roll it all back up into your suitcase. So chromosomes are suitcase packages that are done for the DNA and the cell to fly to its next generation, its next level of experience. All right. So this part is what's relevant to Flying Rainbow Lasagna. For the most part in your cells, your DNA is completely uncoiled. It is not in that tightly coiled package that is known as a chromosome. It is like a sweater that's knitted out of yarns. What if you pulled out all of the yarns? What if you pulled out all of those loops and you just had a giant ball snarling mass of a yarn, just one big kind of like giant tangle? That is what your DNA is most of the time, and that is called chromatin. So chromatin is this big mass of DNA that is in the nucleus. Let's draw it for you. Draw a picture, get your mind going. Okay, here is the cell membrane. And here is the nuclear membrane. And then this purple stuff here that I'm scribbling, this is chromatin. This is a giant vibrating, amazing amalgamation of all of your DNA that is in not a disorganized factor, but is in an open, unfurled factor. And your DNA has behavior. I'm preparing to dance with my hands. Your DNA has behavior. It doesn't just sit there like a bump on a log when it is chromatin. It is absolutely vibrating all the time, but vibrating even more and differently than if you have like one guitar string where you have like a sine wave along one guitar or piano or harp string. Because I often say you're playing your genetic piano and you might be imagining many, many long lines of DNA. Your DNA does all sorts of amazing stuff. It unfurls itself. It creates circle structures, plasmids. It snips itself. It ties itself together in new loops. It then unties itself together and reties itself together again. It does this through a series of enzymatic snippings. Why does it do this? Ostensibly, it does it, well, beyond the answer, which is it does it because of consciousness, like it does it because it's thinking, exemplifying great thoughts that are coming from a much, much larger level of consciousness. That's a big answer. Smaller, more practical answer as to why it does this is because when DNA is all curled up in a scroll-like form, it contains an enormous amount of stored kinetic energy. From now on, when you think about DNA, think about it as something that is constantly whirling and spinning. It actually is not slow or stopped at all. It's spinning and moving all the time. You can hear from my voice. I need to have a little drink here. DNA is moving all the time, vibrating at high speeds. When I shared those DNA videos, those animations from the Science Teaching Foundation, I like them a lot because they have a good sense of showing your DNA has these portions that spin inside of it as fast as a jet's rotor, as fat like an airplane, as a jet has these big giant turbines and they spin around really, really, really fast. You have tiny little things inside of your DNA cells that spin that quickly. And so a lot of things are happening in terms of DNA movement. You have these little parts that are spinning, and they are part of the transcription elements, copying, meaning transcription, meaning copying, where you have the original blueprint, and then you have something that comes along and makes a copy of that blueprint to be able to talk to the other cells. Spewing out like ticker tape, like spewing out like ticker tape from these things that are spinning around super duper fast like jet engines. You also have, when you might see me when I do my dance, the sense of these DNA loops that are kind of do-si-doing. They have crossing patterns. So they are doing things that are kind of like over, under, diving into your partner, swirling around like this, then unswirling around like this, and then looping back up. DNA has a lot of its behavior due to the practicality of mechanics, where if you have something that's tightly coiled up, I have this book, it's tightly coiled up. I want to read the pages. It's like a scroll. How do I read the interior pages when they're all tightly coiled up? And the answer is, hey kid, you're going to have to uncurl some of this stuff. How do I do that? And the answer is enzymatic snipping. Because otherwise, if you try to uncurl this part, it means this part over here is going to get super tight in order to try to loosen up this part. Your DNA is one comprehensive structure. that actually has totality behavior. So in order for your RNA messengers to read the interior pages of your book, you're going to have to release some of that tension, and that is done through enzymatic snipping. RNA are the DNA messengers that read the pages of your book. RNA go into that nuclear membrane. That is like a library. It's a sanctuary. It's a special holy place. It's supposed to be kept clean. Imagine like a book of a room of rare books in the library. You're only allowed to go in there when you wear the white gloves. All right. RNA messengers go in there with white gloves, and they turn through the pages of your book or go through the scrolls of your DNA there, and they're like, this spot over here, I'm supposed to make a copy of this spot over here. So they make a copy a la a Xerox machine and bring it out of your nuclear area of your cell into the rest of the cell. And then this is just a copy. Like you can spill your coffee on there and get soy sauce from your lunch on top of there. Like it doesn't matter if that copied area of DNA becomes degraded because it's not the original. So again, many fantastic and amazing levels of redundancy and protection have been woven into the basic structure and behavior of DNA itself as a biological mechanism that is part of a larger biological and consciousness-based supercomputer to maintain the pristine nature of the information that it carries and make certain that that information goes forward through time. And that information is sometimes something important like how to have melanin in your eyes or your skin so that you're protected from the sun, or how to give live birth if you're a mammal. And it can also be something that is way more abstract. That can be about ways of experiencing time or perceiving life or behaving as a larger organism. So again, it's not only protein structures, it's also behavior of you as the being and reality structures. So to synopsize and to recap and emphasize, your DNA has behavior. It doesn't just sit there like a bump on a log. It has behavior in terms of the mechanics of accessing inner materials and also the connectivity of creating reality structures, because just because there is the potential for something written into the scrolls of your DNA does not mean that it will necessarily be experienced. So this goes beyond the sense of determinism, which is a philosophy that says everything is determined already. The great composer has written everything. I am merely a musician. I simply tap my foot and follow everything exactly the way that it is written by the great composer, adding no degree of artistry on my own. That is genetic determinism. But what if the great composer gave you a whole bunch of music and was like, it's your choice about which pages of this music you actually play? Then you would say that that individual musician bears a lot more personal responsibility and artistic choice and freedom in the music that comes out. That is what your DNA is. Your DNA is a book or a scroll of potential outcomes and experiences where you as the musician are very much making choices about what music you play, how long you sustain a note, how hard you play, is it loud, is it soft, all these different things. That is really what determines your fate or your destiny. So the truth is, when DNA was first discovered by humanity in the 1940s/1950s, humans were experiencing it and they said, this is the code that rules life. If it's in your DNA, it's going to happen. Like if you have a disease A is written in your DNA, meaning outcome A will happen, you will develop disease A. But then the more that DNA was researched, in looking at something like the genetic code of identical twins contain the same genetic book, same scrolls, same initial material, but they live their lives differently and they don't have exactly the same outcome. Disease A might be written into their genetic code, but through the changes in their performance of how they perform the musical piece of their life, they do not necessarily both develop disease A. So identical twins do not develop identical diseases. This is known as epigenetics. Let's write it out for you, and I'll do it fast using the keyboard because it's so laborious for me to write with this digital pen. Let's write down the word epigenetics. It's not my phrase, but I use it here so that you can get a sense of what it is and how it's spelled. Epi, EPI, means a phenomenon within the phenomenon of genetics. Really, I see epigenetics as an overarching code of intelligence that dictates the behavior within the level of DNA and genetics. This has to do with transcriptional errors also. There are mutations or transcriptional errors that come along. Epigenetics actually is the code that rules the code. It rules the behavior of how essentially you're allowed to dance or twist and twirl up these different formations into their different convolutions. There's actually a very, very strong languaging that you're working within. Language has a syntax and a meaning and a logic to it. And your DNA is part of, again, giant biological supercomputer that conforms to this larger syntax and meaning. That is what is known as epigenetics. So the shorthand is, just because your DNA, your scrolls, contain the potential for a certain protein structure, outcome, or behavior, or life experience, does not mean that it is inevitable for you to experience that story in your life. What does influence DNA is your belief system, your thoughts, and your emotional state. That is what causes this thing that in DNA is known as methylation. How curled up are your scrolls? So if my fingers represent like loops of DNA that are curled up, right? Like that picture that I showed you. If my loops are far apart like this, DNA can be read by RNA messengers that kind of go along these loops, feeling with their feelers in the same way that a person reads Braille with their fingertips, feel the bumps and convolutions of the language and then derive meaning from that. RNA messengers feel the bumps and convolutions of the protein structures known as DNA and get information from that. That's reading the pages of DNA in order to create an event or a protein structure. If my fingers are stuck together tightly like this, the RNA can't get in there. It can't read those pages of the book of you or cannot unfurl those scrolls and cannot access that information. So if that information is about how to get a disease and my fingers are stuck closely together, you're like, good job. Good job. That's what I don't want that to happen in reality. What if this is the instruction manual for you and it contains the potential of how to heal a disease? You're like, open the pages, chapter 23, chapter 564, how to fix a disease that happens in the body. You want that. Belief system has a huge amount to do with whether your pages of your book are either open and able to be accessed or stuck together and unable to be accessed. All of this relates to the dormant potentials that are within humanity right now. Why do I talk about my origin story as being Aurora? Why do I talk about the imbalances in the cosmos at large? All of this is backstory as to why you need to or want to have a tool like Flying Rainbow Lasagna to rearrange your DNA in light of the genetic squashing that happened. Squashing, and my face and this lightheartedness is a way of being able to talk about something that is actually the primary trauma on your planet right now. The bad thing that happened to everyone, the boogeyman, the nightmare, the bad stuff that is always lurking in the background there, but is kind of in an amnesiac blind spot that everybody puts it away. Put that bad stuff away so I can just get through my day. That is what everybody does. And I am here to, in a lighthearted way in this class, bring it to the forefront so that it can be acknowledged and you can respond to it by being able to do something about it. Hold on a moment. Why am I drinking superfood coffee instead of just connecting directly to the sun and the stars? Because of the lurking boogeyman in the human genetic biological closet. Why are we all here in this particular format of commodification and using money and magical pieces of paper to get food from the food room known as the grocery store? Because of the genetic modification. And why do we think it is an amazing occurrence to be able to awaken the inner Christ eye and see the ramifications of your choices in each moment? Because of the lurking boogeyman. The lurking boogeyman diminished your Christ chakra, your connection, direct connection to time, timelines, light, itself took you away from being a pure light eater with no karmic burden of death on any other animal or plant to sustain you, and also put you into a sense of confusion and lack of guidance at being like, you don't know, WTF is happening from moment to moment. You're like, instead of making totally informed conscious choices where you're like, I know exactly who I am and exactly where I'm going, and I'm going to go there, and I make this choice now, engage. Instead, like Captain Picard, instead you're like, I shrug my shoulders, I don't know what's going on, something's over there, something's over there, I guess I'll go over here, do this, like I'm a totally different, very stimulus response, unplanned, non-administrative way of moving through time that has you like a Roomba, like a room sweeping robot, like a Roomba bumping into walls all the time. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Bump over there. Oh, I bumped into the membrane of death. Okay, try it again. I'm going over there. Oh, membrane of death. Try it again. Bumping into walls all the time. I'm saying this in very lighthearted ways that your shoulders do not go down so that you don't go into despair and despondency. But it's a bleak situation. I came here for a purpose, and I'm lighthearted in this presentation, but it is a very, very real difficulty. The circumstances of that day that I walked in, became a walk-in and created Flying Rainbow Lasagna were very, very difficult circumstances. I would even call it a spiritual warfare, and something that exists as a turmoil or imbalance, conflict on many, many layers of the planes of time. Everything is not okay up there, out there. And if you want things to be okay up there, out there, it meant that I had to come down here, in here, back here, in order to share with you these ideas that are ideas of capacitation, away from determinism, saying your fate is determined, or fatalism, like saying you are fated to experience everything. Everything that I exemplify and teach about with Flying Rainbow Lasagna says that you have a great deal of personal choice in terms of what reality structures you align with, and also what reality structures you create in your co-creative capacitation with God, the larger divine presence, the great composer and conductor of this orchestra. You actually have an enormous amount of personal expression, choice, and freedom that can rectify all the things that have gone on in terms of planetary trauma, the boogeyman lurking in the closet, why human beings have been diminished for a long amount of time, why human beings have been brought to the point of being food eaters rather, as opposed to being exalted light eaters. I'm not condescending to you at all. In fact, it is my job, Joy, to be here as Aurora in the physical in order to exemplify to you what can be done with a body. That's why I talk about my origin story in this particular teaching. I came into what is a human body that was very similar to yours in this moment, that I have then changed, augmented, and transformed. Yes, my body is a handyman special, that there was a lot of fire damage or neurological damage, what killed the previous occupant. And then what I have done over 20 years of being here, Flying Rainbow Lasagnaing, changing my DNA, which is now, it's now my DNA. I inhabit this. I've taken on the mantle of this life. This is now my DNA, my story, the book and the scrolls of my life here as Aurora, and have respectfully changed, augmented, and rewritten that story to encompass things that would be considered medically, scientifically impossible. Regenerating aspects of the body, reconnecting aspects of the neurology that would not have been able to be connected. Again, Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a bridge between formerly divergent realms. That can be neuron A to neuron B that previously had some kind of a blockade between them, or connecting point A in the brain to point B in the toes of the body where there would have been a neurological disruption. So just to be able to move my body, to speak, and to, whatever, walk around and maintain my upright balance, I do a lot of Flying Rainbow Lasagnaing. I jump up and over neurological blockages. Got it? And I don't just compensate. I also then heal. I also then do all of these things that are restructuring and recapacitation of body parts that wouldn't have been able to function otherwise. And I share with you this again so that you will be inspired and encouraged in what you can do with your own body. You're like, huh, Aurora took that DIY handyman special house, turned it into a really nice house. I did. And I want you to look at it too and be like, wow, like you can convert your own house too. Yes. So the concept also is that once I conceived of the thought structure known as Flying Rainbow Lasagna in my interdimensional format and journey coming here as Aurora, this potential exists as a song that can be written or played or experienced by many, many, many others. And even if I came here, even if I never came here, guys, if I bypassed this whole entire experience of being Aurora and was just like, see ya, like, like, see ya, suckers, I'm off on my cosmic journey, kind of just throw the lasagna over my shoulder and be like, kapow, I'm out of here. Even if I just did that, you guys would have figured it out. It might have taken 500 or 5,000 years, but you would have figured it out, because the whole point is all light is connected everywhere. All thought structures are connected everywhere. If you're going to think a new thought, thoughts are non-local. And that means that that thought is now available to the entirety of consciousness. When I created this with various safeguards or firewalls of protection baked into it as an innate form of this structure, because I don't have to keep it a secret. Because again, to characterize this, where I come from as Aurora in pure consciousness, keeping secrets is not a thing. Like, you can't lie, you can't hide. Information is information. You can read a person like a book. You can see everything there. The whole idea of like secrets and spycraft and like, I'm going to know about this, but you're not going to know about this. Like, that just does not exist. You're fooling yourself, you're fooling others in a very silly, childish way. Like when little kids, like, put their hands over their eyes and they're like, no one else can see me. I put my hands over my own eyes. No one else can see me. It's like, come on, little kid. Like, we can all see you there. Like, we know what's going on. So that is what keeping secrets is like at this higher dimensional level. It is a nonsense. You don't keep secrets. So when you create something, you're like, okay, I'm going to create this thing. Everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to know about it. Everyone's going to have access to it. You would think like, okay, I don't want this to fall into the hands of evil, wicked, or immature consciousnesses. What if they do something bad with the lasagna? And the answer is, this Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a concept about energy and entropy and sending undesirable or non-intended personality and energy aspects to entropy. It means you take the stuff that is not supposed to exist and put it in the place where you put things that don't exist. You put it into a state of non-being. If something that is diseased or erroneous or malformed got a hold of the lasagna, instead of becoming like even more grotesquely malformed, what would happen is all of its malformations would go into a state of non-existence. That this is, quote unquote, the food that you eat that rectifies the entire, not only genetic code, but time code of separating the events, consciousness outcomes, and things that you do want that are supposed to exist from the things that are not supposed to exist. This, as a philosophical shape, represents the movement towards the direction, culmination of everything that should exist. Infinity, energy, totality, consciousness, and not only speed of light, but faster than light existence. Everythingness all at once. Now, balanced with the concept of entropy, which is non-being, frozenness, non-existence, and the place where may be sent aspects of consciousness that are fragmented, that need to be healed, that do not have a pathway back in terms of the biocircuit of consciousness being emitted from the source, which is the singularity, which is this convergence point here, and return back to the source. As I was stating, those putis are stuck on the membrane of death. If you died and you went to the membrane of death, what would happen is your genetic sweater would be unfurled. You'd learn your life lessons through life review, get back to the beginning, try it all over again. That's my gumption. Get some gumption there. You're going to get like, or like whatever, like the coaches has you on the sidelines, kind of like brushes you off, kind of like, look, hey kid, this is what you did wrong. This, and this. Now get your mouth guard in, get back in there on the field. Get back in there on the field. And you keep doing that into the vibrating waveform field until you are shaped right and in alignment to exit the wormhole that is at the center of the singularity of this reality structure. Play every note that you need to play, exploring alternative, flawed consciousness forms until you play the correct reality structures that bring you to that beautiful homecoming. There are some consciousnesses who have a trajectory that is so flawed that they don't have a pathway back. Let me drink, fortify myself here. They don't have a pathway back. They've been stuck in an interim state, somewhere hovering between life and death or life and non-being, and suffering greatly and creating much of the suffering that we experience here, hat tip to the primary trauma and the boogeymen in everyone's collective closet. They made your lives hard, caused a lot of suffering here on this planet, not the first planet to be perturbed and almost destroyed. And it happens because of their mistakes. They made mistakes with time machines and time distortive technology structures that have gone horribly awry. They must take responsibility for their own actions in parallel and alternative dimensions that left them as consciousnesses kind of stuck without a place to really be, requiring food, energy, but not having a mouth with which to eat. This is where we get many of our earth paradigm, mythological cautionary tales of hungry ghosts. This comes from Japan and Asia, and also mummies from the Middle East who did not have the appropriate opening of the mouth ceremony, and they are unable to eat the food of the gods in their ambrosia, in their post-life state. That is what happens if you don't die well. Hold on, let me drink a little bit more. Because if you die well, you eat nothing but the pure light of Christ, the pure light of consciousness, the pure light of awareness, and you are sustained in that angelic, these words I know are heavily religiousified, but the higher state. Because really, when you are an angel, you are this. You are that time creature that I just showed you. These are your wings. And I'm going to emphasize this over and over in this class. Like, this is your angelic anatomy. These are your wings. And when you're moving in the correct figure 8 motions with your DNA and with your patterns through time, you are sustained on pure light, which is pure consciousness, which is beyond, superfood coffee and anything that you would need like that. But we're moving up to those levels. And I'm here, again, to do it myself, to run the marathon successfully, guide you and encourage you guys in your own marathon, show you what is possible, because you haven't had that many examples of like how to successfully run the marathon of life, which means you don't die. No offense to anybody who ever died, because there have been amazing masters, yoga practitioners, and wonderful teachers and guides that have been here that died physically, but you're here in this moment of dun, 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 point to my painting here, planetary ascension. What was appropriate for previous generations of spiritual aspirants is not always appropriate for you now, because you have a doorway open to you now of potential to be able to transcend the necessity of death and experience going into a higher dimensional state through body transformation and metamorphose, change of state, without having to go through the death experience. Big stuff. So again, like, beautiful recognition to those masters that came before us, but your journey is unique to you. So please recognize that. Let me get to questions and comments, because I'm in about an hour in. Then let me get to the actual mechanics. Like, Aurora, like, skip to the chase. Enough with the talk, skip to the chase. Okay. Pedro says, I've been adding the FRL to the Merkaba I create on me and my chakras, but I'm not sure if each chakra FRL should move in sync or independently of each other. They move in sync, but they move in sync as harmonies. First of all, beautiful question. And thank you for your efforts at healing the fabric of space, time, and consciousness for us. The waveforms that are known as flying rainbow lasagna move in sync, but they move interdependently. They are complementary in their sizes of what they are doing. I want to change the direction of my camera a little bit so that you can see. I have a jiggly wire, which is why I moved the thing gently. Oh, there you go. No. Yeah, good. Now you can still hear me. Oh, let me move this microphone. There we go. That is the sculpture that I want to show you over there. Can't see it that effectively. I have to jump up at least once per show, per class. There we go. I don't know if you can see that any better, but your phones might be tiny. Multi-layered. So this one over here shows it a little bit. This one over here doesn't show it at all. The lasagna has many layers in it. So just keep that in mind. And each layer is a layer of reality that is moving at a particular speed. These are like complex interlocking gears of your transmission, like your car transmission through time. And these complex interlocking gears have a harmonic patterning that allows them to intermesh with each other effectively. So each one of these whirling gears of time moves independently, but they complement each other in exactly the same way that music works. I can turn on my piano and play some music. The notes fit within each other. So that's part of the genius of the great composer, to create a circumstance that's also like what is on all of my paintings over here, circles that fit next to and within each other so perfectly that the larger time cycles also have smaller time, like a year, the months, the weeks, the days, the minutes, the seconds, everything interlocks perfectly. So the answer to your wonderment is these time structures do move in synchronized form, even while they also move independently. And you might have faster movement or more rotations per time period of smaller things, like things at the blue and violet level, than things at the red and orange level, but they do all eventually sync up in these larger cycles. And this is like exemplified by the timekeeping of the ancient Maya, that had these literal time wheels that they would create and sculpt that were like giant sculptural forms, like gears that literally meshed together, and there was a smaller one inside of it. Or if you've ever played with spirograph, people look at my artwork, they're like, that reminds me of spirograph from when I was a child. Very similar. Having a larger toothy outer grid and then smaller circles that go within that smaller grid. That is what lasagna is like. I hope that answered your question. It's a beautiful question. Trisha says, and Trisha, thank you for being here, because I know that you have limited electricity and have, profound infrastructure problems where you live. So thank you for being here by candlelight, truly. She says, Aurora, does our DNA supercoiling have to do with the uni-multiverse expansion? And depending on the data, we fill it with the direction of the expansion. Yes. So when I'm hearing the expansion from you, we're talking about like the concept of beginning with the starting point of the great in-breath or the great Big Bang. That would be an expansion of the time bubble, possibilities and probabilities in the ever-expanding bubble of the moment now. And does the supercoiling have to do with that level of expansion? The answer is yes. And direction of the expansion, like I would say that is a very, very large time wave that in many ways, that's like a time tsunami, and we are little surfers within that tsunami. So there's a balance between larger time wave activities or cycles of time and what things are going on a much, much grander scale, and what is happening in terms of your empowerment as an individuated structure within that structure. You are one life of 100 years or possibly longer, like a fruit fly. I joke about this, within a larger alive time animal that can be around for billions of years, whatever, 28 billion years, like an almost uncountable number of years that we experience as just the length of one universe, and it is not a linear journey either. So you affect the larger structure of time, but you are also extremely influenced by that larger structure. As a fish, you're like a salmon where there is the flow of time that is the water that you swim within. But if you get together enough fish all swimming in a particular direction, you can change and restructure the entire direction of the time stream that you are in. And this is literally what I am doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I am one fish And I have come back here into the fish tank of time, known as this time place. And ethically, I am doing my flying rainbow lasagna dancing. And I'm affecting all of you guys with my thoughts, all of you guys with my DNA emanations, and many, many multiple time structures. But you can tell I've been here for over 20 years. This is not a light switch type of thing where it's like, because this is now I will joke to myself about myself. When I came here as Aurora in 2001, I thought that my gig would be over by 2003. Seriously. First of all, I thought, no problem. I'm going to just eat light every day. That was not enough. I literally had to learn about like coffee and bagels and cream cheese and all these things to be able to make your life go. And also, I thought, that my journey would be complete as soon as I just made a flying rainbow lasagna sculpture and showed it to humanity. So like, I wasn't going to just be like, toss it over my shoulder and be like, see ya, I'm out of here, silly people. And I'm going to go on my soul's journey. I came in here into a body. Then I had to like, do a lot of neurological healing and housekeeping and rebuilding in order to be able to be effective and walking and talking in society. And then when I actually shared this concept, and wait, here's my jumping up again, original, the OG, the OFRL, original flavor of flying rainbow lasagna. This is the first one that I ever made, and it has still these like these little edges here. It's Sculpey clay, and I cooked it like in a toaster oven. That's why it has those little edges there, like, where the toaster lines go. Yeah. And I used to just try to offer this to humanity. And I thought that would be the end of my gig in 2003. No, clearly not, because it wasn't enough for me to just make a sculpture, externalize the internal experience, and then show it to humanity and be like, okay, guys, like, you got it. Simple as pie. Now I'm out of here. That is not what happened, because it was necessary for me to more effectively translate and share this concept with humanity so that people actually got it. They didn't actually get the lasagna if I just showed them a pretty picture of it, or if I just showed them a sculpture of it. It's taken a lot more talky talk in order to be able to get this across to people in a wonderful, positive way. I'm not resentful of the extension of my job joy being here that I have had many, many, many additional years. But it's been a complex effort to change and guide in a new direction that is positive the larger event structure of reality. This is analogous to turning a giant ship at sea, like a giant cruise ship or something like that, an aircraft carrier, where you can't be going like in this direction and then all of a sudden, now we're going to switch and move and we're going to go at 90-degree angles. Like, you can't do that. With a giant ship, you have to move in these slow arcs, incrementally changing and shifting to be able to move in the direction you want. That's called the larger event structures. And that also relates to humanity. Humanity, your social dynamics, the planet, your ecosystem, everything that is here. It doesn't just change on a dime. It doesn't just turn in a 90-degree angle. It's taken many, many, many years in order to be able to change and shift reality from doing my personal dance. So I'm going to get into this because this is part of the teaching of today, but interdimensional ethics. Interdimensional ethics, like, is it okay? Am I allowed to be here? Am I allowed to make these changes in my DNA? Am I allowed to make these changes to the larger reality structure? And here's the answer. Anybody can change reality. It is part of your life. It is part of the I am presence, which is the red chakra stuff. You get born, it means you pass the audition. It means you come here and you're like, hey, I got a body and I got ideas and I got stuff, and I'm going to tell people about the stuff and the ideas that's inside of me. And that is a basic right of your existence, whatever is the quality or level of the stuff that's inside of you. And it is definitely the job joy of many people who would be considered visionaries, creatives, like people who have ideas that they write poems and stories about, paint pictures, create architecture about. Like, this is part of what is known as human culture. Like, you come here with ideas and you share those ideas throughout your life. My journey is a little bit different in that I came here into an adult form, not here through like the birth canal that others have come into. And I also do the same thing in terms of reality ethics. Come here with the sense of thoughts and ideas that I am allowed to share or mandated to share with this world as an artist and as a musician, I offer them on a plate to humanity. And then it is offered in freedom, and it is up to you about whether you like these thoughts, about whether you want to internalize them and think about them more. I mean, Jimi Hendrix did this. He's like, I've got a lot of ideas and music inside of me. I'm going to play it as a guitar song. Love me, hate me, listen to me, or don't listen to me. This is my life. You got it? Like, and many, many, many other, again, artists, musicians, and people who have been here throughout the experience of human history, that this is what you do, and you are allowed to do it. It is totally appropriate. So just being in existence and emitting your own time music, which is what happens with your DNA, affects the world around you. And you are also similarly affected by other consciousnesses that are on their journey. And that includes all DNA-based life, everything from a microbe, a tiny worm in the ground, trees outside of my window, everything that is here. We're all an ecosystem of consciousness, ecosystem of energy, ecosystem of light, information, data, intelligence, all beautifully affecting one another, and that this is meant to be a reciprocal, respectful rapport where I'm like, oh, I hear your music, cool music, and I'm going to play like this, and you're going to play like this, and everything's going to be beautiful together. The symphony of life, that is essentially what you do. So in terms of interdimensional ethics, why did I backbend and come in here? Because this world needed new information and new light so that everything inside of the terrarium would not die, so that there would be a graduating class. Totally righteous and appropriate for me to share my internal state with others through art, through music, and through the personal self-expression known as DNA. Have I not gotten to this point? DNA as a transceiver antenna. Your DNA has behavior, it has motion, it has movement, it has an oscillation or vibratory behavior, and it also, like many things that are vibrating substrates, can both receive information that is in a waveform and send out information that is in a waveform. When Aurora is not in a physical body container, I'm a waveform. Like I'm a song, da-da, the song of Aurora, and I put the song of Aurora into this body. When you create something like the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, that is a melody. So this is my own personal contribution to the Symphony of Life. I wrote a melody. I wrote a song called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It is part of interdimensional ethics that others can take your song and cover it. But what they do is give credit to the original writer of the song. That's the way this stuff works. And this is how I request you respect my work here in this time place. So I always use this example. Led Zeppelin wrote a song called Stairway to Heaven. It's a pretty good song. It's pretty famous, like one of the most famous songs in our modern world. Lots of people cover that song. They take the same note structure and the same basic lyrical structure, but sometimes they play it a little bit differently, play it on a different set of instruments, sing it in a way that is a little bit differently and more comfortable to their own vocal tones. It's not always a direct imitation of the original musicians who created it. And there's always the respect and recognition given to the original musicians who created it. So I ask for the same thing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I'm the first person who invented this. I'm the first person who did this maneuver. I'm the first person who made this melody and this song. But it is absolutely my very fulfilling mission, my job joy in this world, to share the song with others. And I want you to internalize it and take it and make it your own. I don't want to be the only Flying Rainbow Lasagna that was ever in existence. That actually would not be a total fulfillment of my mission. I actually really want to make certain that others hear the music, learn the music themselves, and do it themselves. Why? Because this allows for a rectification of the things in your DNA that are actually unintentional and not fair. This allows for the return to your factory settings so that you can actually have your DNA do all the things that it was always meant to do, and have your body do all the things that your body was always meant to do. Things such as move through time, but not chronologically age in decrepitude. That a lot of that has to do with this whole mitosis thing of cells dividing and then creating the offspring. Sometimes there is loss of signal. Like this one over here didn't quite get all of the juicy information that this cell had over here. And that as you go in further generations, you get a little bit further and further away from the original tuning until your guitar is just totally out of tune. That's not what your body is supposed to be like. So some of this is being able to jump over any inhibitions between your connection of your inner reality sensor and the light that is inside of here and reality generation equipment to the source. Like be like, ta-da, like this is what a song is supposed to sound like. You're like, okay, that I'm in tune. I'm playing the song the way it's supposed to sound like, song of life. And I'm going to keep on playing that song of life, as opposed to when I was first born, I heard the song of life, then I never heard it again. And my music got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until I died, because the song got to be so distorted and distressed. Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a way for each one of you, each organism, and even the planet herself, itself, the solar system, heliosphere, everything that's got a toroidal infrastructure in terms of energy, to be able to go into or achieve the higher dimensional state that is known as a higher dimensional torus. That is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So to talk math, what cube is to tesseract, torus is to Flying Rainbow Lasagna. A cube is the lower dimensional version of a tesseract. A tesseract is like a cube or a square shape, constantly unfolding or blossoming and blossoming and blossoming over time. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the higher dimensional state of the torus. When you take this torus and you place it in a higher dimensional state, you get the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. How do you do that? What does that mean? It means taking this time bubble that was previously contextlessness, sitting around doing its own thing, surrounded by nothing, contextless, putting it in a context. When I put this in a context, which is known as hyperspace, the room that contains the room, we can then move this relative to its context. Now I'm up relative to the context, down relative to the context, or side, or in, out, relative to the context, the fish tank, the boundaries that I've placed this into. The context is called hyperspace. The hyperspace context is the room that contains the room is time. This is you, your personal possibilities and probabilities in terms of moving through time. When you put this into hyperspace, a higher dimensional context, and you start to move it up and down, now let's get into actual DNA and what you're actually doing, because through superpositioning, you are able to rewrite the letters of your book. I know there's a couple of more questions, but I'm on a roll. Let me stay on my roll, and then I'll get back to your questions. So your DNA as it stands right now has some stuff that is alphanumerics in the right order, that is written in such a way that it imparts information, and some parts of the alphabet and protein structures that scientists call, I'm being silly now, like that's junk DNA. I'm making like a silly provincial voice. Like we don't believe in that around here. We're silly and provincial, and we just think that that's a bunch of junk. Throw it out the window. So I'm trying to be lighthearted. I'm not sure if it's coming across, but like I'm a hayseed from out in the rural boondocks, and we don't believe in that stuff, and that's a bunch of junk. Throw it out the window. But that is not what it is. So I used my example many times here in class of the beautiful unicorn tapestry that's in the cloisters in New York. Front of the tapestry looks like a beautiful unicorn picture. Back of the tapestry looks incomprehensible and like a bunch of threads and yarns all tied together into a crazy mishmash. But the crazy mishmash that is known as all of these threads and causality structures tying together gives you a beautiful picture on the front. In this class, I also use as the example a Snoopy Christmas sweater. So imagine you've got like one of these silly Christmas sweaters that's red, that has a picture of like a green Christmas tree, then it's got a picture of Snoopy, the cartoon character, sitting on top of his doghouse. All right, a Snoopy Christmas sweater. That's the picture on the front. So you have this complex topological interweaving of many interlocking loops. That is what knitting is. One big long yarn that has been knitted into these loops that makes a picture on the front. And if I took the sweater apart, if I just pulled on one thread and pulled it all out, then eventually what you'd have is a big giant mass of red yarn, a bunch of green yarn, some white, some black, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and not really a sense of the overarching picture that is formed by the complex weaving together of all of these loops. That is exactly what your DNA does. Your DNA is intelligence that is at such a high level that when it is properly woven and looped together, it makes a beautiful picture of reality. Picture of Snoopy and his doghouse, all right? There's a meaningfulness to it. The way that this present world looks at and assesses and dissects and analyzes DNA is chopping it into pieces, not looking at the cohesive whole, and not looking at it in its behavioral patterns, because just like a butterfly, you cannot learn everything about a butterfly. P.S. Hat tip to our angelic wings that make you shaped in time exactly like a butterfly. Can't learn everything about a butterfly by taking a butterfly and like killing it, squashing it between two panes of glass, putting it under the microscope. Now I am peering through my microscope at this squashed butterfly and learning about it in that way. And then I adjust my spectacles and I say, I have learned everything there is to learn about a dead butterfly squashed into a plane that is not even third dimensional. I've taken away a great deal of the complexity and dimensionality of the butterfly itself. And I have no idea about its motivations. Like, I don't know, like, why does it fly over there? What is it doing when it's doing? I don't even know that it flies. I don't know anything about what the butterfly is actually doing because I'm not watching it in its behavior, in its natural factory settings behavior. So DNA has natural factory settings behavior. It has stuff that it does when it is quote unquote flying around the garden from flower to flower. Your DNA has complex interweavings and communication. It communicates. So you receive information from the sun and the stars. That's part of the behavioral information. You also emit energy and consciousness and truthfulness, like playing the genetic piano to everything that is around you. So you are influenced by your ecosystem. You're influencing the ecosystem. You're influenced by the consciousness network known as the sun and the stars itself. And yes, you broadcast back to the sun and the stars. You're not playing your guitar in your own private garage. You're part of a giant band that is known as the Symphony of Life. So big. My mild criticism of science in this lesson is cutting apart DNA and not looking at it in its totality state, and also not recognizing life as being part of an ecosystem of consciousness, that you are very much embedded within the larger superstructure of your planet, of your solar system, of light and information everywhere, and that DNA is a tool that is, or a conduit that is receiving that light information and then bringing and sending that light information into other places beyond the progeny of your own particular species. But yes, you can influence the DNA of another species. And I'm influencing your DNA right now. Guys, don't run out of the room unless you want to run out of the room. But this is consensual. And this is also why I, do things in terms of having tuition or enrollment. People are in my class or they sign up for my videos and they are essentially saying, I consent to Lasagne. I know that you, Aurora, are going to be influencing my DNA, because one of the ways that we influence each other's vibrating strings of DNA and behavior is through verbal transmission of information, our presence, our being, our thought structures. So I have a beautiful song about this called Symphony of Life. But when you first came here as a little tiny child, you didn't know anything about death. You were not dancing in that way. Your DNA was not dancing in the sense of like, one day I'm going to die. One day I'm going to die. And then at a certain point, you learn language. You're able to have a conversation with the people around you. You experience death of someone in your life. It could be a goldfish or an aged relative or someone like that. And you're like, Mommy, Daddy, where did the goldfish go? And they're like, goldfish went bye-bye. And this is what death is. And then they also say, and your DNA changes when you're like, that's death. And then they do this, they say, and one day you're gonna die too. And that's the ingestion of that first program that then makes your DNA begin to move in a very different pattern, that then begins to incorporate into all of its weavings and all of its behavioralisms, the presumption of death. But death is not a valid presumption. So again, you have had many multitudinous examples of those whom have died, some in ignorance and lack of consciousness, some, overtly evil or wicked, some very good, some very good, worthy people and amazing masters and amazing teachers have been here and have died. And very relatively few examples of those whom have not followed the death program. Where I come from, an ancient concurrent Atlantis, before I became Aurora, who was an impulse on the stars, nobody died. You had 100% examples of success. Like, imagine everybody who opens a business, like they succeed. Everybody opens a business, they succeed. Like the taco stand, the bagel store, the pizza store, the whatever, Thai food restaurant, everything goes into business and it stays in business and is very, very, very successful in their business. Very different than being like, yeah, everybody opens a restaurant and you know what? They all go out of business. And you kind of, you get it, everybody dies, even stars die in this flawed version of reality that includes and contains not only the possibility of mortality, but the inevitable experience of mortality. You're like, even the sun goes out of business. Every year, we've got winter, spring, summer, fall. The entire ecosystem goes out of business. Everything goes out of business, kind of normative, normalized to the sense of one day, this is me, and one day I'll go out of business too. No, but you just need some examples of a successful business that's like, yep, that they've been in business for this many generations or this many years, and they're still going, whatever they're doing, like making like some kind of like, I want to say like Amish pretzels or whatever. That business stays in business no matter what. They're still going. They're incredibly successful. But that can be you in your own personal experience. That is what is unique and special about this time in our life. That's basically one of the primary misprograms of the behavior of your DNA that I am here to rectify. Teach you how to do this transformation, that it is possible, and give you an example of a successful business that is called transcending death. So get to some pictures here, get to some actual pictures of what is happening. How do we actually do this dance on a genetic level? You know I'm going to have to click through stuff. Okay, this is something that you've already seen, so let's move that aside. This is something you've already seen, let's move that aside. This is a really good picture. I didn't draw this, but I do have a sketch that I did of this. That this is an accurate molecular diagram that shows what DNA is shaped like. And one thing that you can see is that it is not just a simple twisting of a ladder where there are equal waveforms. Both sides of the ladder do not twist equally. So you have some areas where I'm wiggling my cursor where the waveform peaks are closer together and some where they are further apart. I hope you can read on your screen, and I will make it larger for you, make it as big as we can get. Major groove and minor groove. We are groovy. You're groovy on the level of your DNA. Your DNA is the musical score of who you are. And you have both a major groove and a minor groove. And that all of these little guys over here are relatively accurate also in showing here you see the peaks of the DNA are relatively close together, and here relatively far apart. So now we get to this. This is a screenshot from my actual class. Please, guys, always look at the stuff that's on EduCreations. I put so much into there, and even here when I do like a 2 or 3 hour presentation, I'm still not getting you everything. So watch my stuff on EduCreations. This shows what is actually happening on the level of your DNA. So it is a normal part. Just recognize that this is split apart. Then I'll go back to my face and kind of show you. But you've got this red strand over here, this green strand over here. They are split apart, and you see the lasagna inside and between those 2 strands. It is a normal part of DNA behavior to, at times, have your DNA unzipped. So when you get to the level of your DNA being 1 strand, 1 yarn, it's essentially like a zipper where you have these protein connectors that go up the middle like a zipper's teeth. And in your molecular, biological, miraculous hardware system inside of your body, there are these little transcription molecular elements that unzip your DNA. So it goes like from being like, stuck together as one cohesive yarn to being unzipped in this little zone and then zipped back together. That is a normal part of what your DNA has been doing even before Flying Rainbow Lasagna was in existence. It is usually done only in a portion of the DNA, because if you unzipped the entire genetic sweater, you would not have enough everything sticking together to sustain life. You got it? So ordinarily you unzip a little bit at a time, use that area to make copies or transcribe, and then zip it back together. My contribution in Flying Rainbow Lasagna is creating this interdimensional space holder. So this shape, you already know, is a waveform that is the end result of the singularity oscillating very, very fast between 2 points. It has an up-down oscillation movement, and at the same time, a spinning motion that is like this, like a jet engine. So when you unzip that DNA, you are able to place, as a placeholder, this whirling, complex vortex of energy that is sustained by the consciousness of your mind into that space, so that the DNA doesn't collapse and it maintains its form, its formfulness is what I wanted to say. It maintains its form and has a structural stability. When you unzip DNA and then create that form with an energy form, the structural stability of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, what happens as an end result is you are able to create new dance partners that do-si-do across the aisle with one another. Grabbing a color here. So each one of these letters up here represents a protein structure, you know, taurine, adenine, guanine, cytosine. These are, I think it's tyrosine, the T for tyrosine. I'm just trying to remember things correctly and get it through while I'm here, like under the pressure and duress of like speaking, you know, live in class. Pardon me if I said the wrong word, not taurine, but tyrosine, I think is what it is. Each one of these always has a partner. T always goes to A. You see this? T always goes to A, and C always goes to G. And over a lifetime of dancing with these partners across the way, you're like, here, look, I'm bored with dancing with you. You again, I don't want to have to dance with you. What if we are able to connect that T over here to this A over here instead? What? Or what if I could connect it to this A over here instead? We can create a new combination, a new shape of reality. So instead of the ancestral patterns and cultural patterns that you've been taught in terms of the way that your DNA must be organized in terms of these pairings of molecular bonding, you can begin to create new, wait, C goes to G. Let's try to draw a straight line. G over to C, new combos, new dance partners. What does this mean? What does this mean? So first of all, these are the alphanumerics that contain light, that are a pattern that has a language and a syntax, and you're part of a larger language structure. You want to conform to that language and syntax, but you don't necessarily want to have it say the story that is, here's how you get sick and die. You want to have a different story. So the analogy that I use is the DNA book or scroll that you have inherited from your ancestors and from your culture is kind of like any like telephone book or, you know, instructional manual, like a technical manual for your car or some kind of lawnmower or something like that. Like, it's not necessarily great literature. It's got some stuff that's truthful in there, but then a lot of stuff that is not that truthful or relevant. But if you have the capacity to take, let's say, a giant pair of scissors and cut all of those letters out and then rearrange all of those letters, you could take anything. It could be the telephone book, boring instruction manual for a lawnmower, anything, and rearrange it into great literature, something like whatever, Shakespeare's literature or War and Peace, something that humans look at as beautiful, poetic language. Your DNA right now contains some truth that you have inherited from your ancestors and from your culture, and then many things that are either distorted or non-truthful or non-relevant to your journey anymore. If you have Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you have the capacity to rearrange all of those letters into a new story that has a new relevance and that has a different outcome. So essentially, you become empowered to not only switch from here's a timeline I don't like onto a different timeline or a different timeline or a different timeline, like onto a different pre-existing story. You have a pencil with an eraser, which I don't have on my desk right now, pencil with an eraser that you can use in order to restructure and rewrite the personal narration of your life And your personal narration of your life comes not only from God, the highest composer that is creating these reality structures, but also is part of a co-creative partnership with God in the moment right now. So genetic determinism and fatalism says, it was written in my DNA, I have a soul contract, it's just going to happen. Don't ask me, I don't work, don't ask me, I just work here, right? Like, have some attitude, not my fault, not my job. I just follow the things that I'm told to do. But actually, with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, over the past 21 or 22 years or so, have a great deal more opportunity for personal responsibility. That's why I talk a lot about being a responsible, responsive, galactic citizen, responsive to the newer paradigm or contextual reality of possibilities of what you can experience in reality. There might have been a time when things were more determined or fated to happen to you. But as soon as Flying Rainbow Lasagna was created, pencil with an eraser. It means that you can erase or turn down the volume on reality structures that you do not wish to experience, and then exacerbate the truthfulness of things that you do want to experience, and even write new truisms to experience. So death is one of those, turning down the volume on death programming, transcending reality structures that end in death, and even writing a new reality structure where you don't die, the planet doesn't die, reality and time doesn't die. This is very relational right now in terms of planetary ascension. I came here over 20 years ago. I wrote the original Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans recordings 10 years ago. We're deep into the ascension process. Ascension is the literal antithesis of death, or alternative option, not necessarily 180 degrees apart from, but is a valid, viable option that transcends the apparent necessity or inevitability of death. And so again, just because you've been on a planet that has been all about mortality and death for a very long amount of time, now is the ascension time when you do something that is different than death in terms of metamorphosis and moving into higher dimensional reality states. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna is one tool or one approach that is incredibly effective at making it possible for you to personally rewrite your story, to jump over the obstacle known as death and experience something else, and also for your whole entire planet to do that. That's what that painting is. That painting is called Birth of a New Dimension, Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, where the ordinarily toroidal magnetosphere or surrounding magnetic envelope of Earth, the planet, time structure of Earth, is changing and transforming into time structure known as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Earth gets more opportunities to do more stuff other than just die. That's big. The Earth as a planetary structure and entire energetic and consciousness ecosystem gets to choose, like, gumption. I don't want to die. Let's do something different. And you, as an inhabitant and co-experiencer of that reality plane, get to do something similar. That is what ascension is, that is ongoing. So mechanics of DNA. The first aspect is comprehending that when your DNA is unzipping, which it unzips all the time as a normal part of what it's doing. It's like, I'm going to unzip, I'm going to copy, I'm going to rezip. But what if you can unzip and hold Flying Rainbow Lasagna there? And if you squint your eye exactly right, and you look at the center of this Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you will see the front part of this red area that crosses in front, making kind of a double helix, with the back portion. I'm tracing with my finger. Can you see me tracing? Let's trace with this. Tracing with this. Can you see me tracing? Tracing the back portion of this. There's a part where the two of them overlap and overlap, but they are distant like this. They are distant like this, but you have to see them exactly in the right way. So from top-down view, they're apart like this, but from when you see them overlapping, they look like this. You got it? They are separated apart, but able to be read in relevance in a new format, going across that gap that is held and stabilized and upheld by the activities of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as it is whirling and as it is spinning and as it is oscillating. You can rewrite the book and the story of your DNA. So, okay, many great scientists and biological explorers and describers of the world have been talking to you about epigenetics as it relates to things like your thought structure, your belief system. Cancer is a good example of that. A lot of people think like if mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, ancestors got cancer, then you're fated to have it too. No, cancer is not necessarily something that you are fated to have just because you have the potentiality for that in your family, ancestral lineage, or even within your DNA. It is a story that is either written and experienced or written and non-experienced, held in the stuck together pages of the book of you, where you're like, nope, not interested in that, interested in something else instead. And similarly, if cancer is expressed or tumor is expressed as cancer, that you can also have the unfurled pages of your book that are like, here's the chapter on how to dismantle a cancerous tumor. Guess what? You guys all have that chapter inside of you. It's part of autophagy or autophagy, AUTOPHAGY. This is a process that the body undergoes when you fast for about 12 to 14 consecutive hours, and you have no longer ingested glucose and other things that keep your digestion going. Your body then goes away from digesting food that is in your digestive tract and promotes its efforts into self-cleaning. You start to clean house. All of your body parts kind of get gone over. And you're like, yeah, trash, 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 trash. And the trash is sometimes diseased cells, cells that have gone horribly awry, cells that are at the end of their life cycle, cells that are mutations that need to get cleaned up out of your body. And this is a big part of what is a normal process in your body. So you have these dismantling processes that are already available to you. And sometimes you have to know behaviorally how to exacerbate them. So if you want to know about me, I do autophagy. It's relatively new for me within the past 6 months or so, because I used to eat low glycemic, meaning like you eat many small meals throughout the day and you never fast like that, because that was also positive for my brain in terms of epilepsy. Now my brain is pretty doing well, like well healed. And so I've been experimenting a couple of times a week with autophagy. And what that is, if you eat your final meal and you eat your protein meal around like 4:30 or 5 p.m., and then you do not eat or drink after that until, let's say, 7 or 9 a.m. the next morning. So you end up entering into like a 12 to 14 hour, sometimes 16-hour long period wherein you've used up all of your dietary blood glucose, and then your body kicks into this different gear, like changes transmission. It goes into body healing, kicking out cancer cells, apoptosis, which is programmed cell death of cancer cells, and clearing stuff out, clearing out fragments of stuff that's not supposed to be there, just kind of like polishing up your whole entire body system, and also regeneration of tons of stem cells. And I mentioned this in another class, it's even more powerful if you combine it with sun gazing, looking at the sun and ingesting the sun as it goes down for the night. Then when the sun comes up, catching the early rays of the sun as it's coming up, eating it, sun gazing it, because that's during that time of non-ingestion that is helping to positively influence the behavior of your cells. This is just one example of the dormancies that are inside of your body. You have amazing talents, skills, and supernatural capacitations that are dormant inside of your body right now that are because of the planetary invasion and the exploitation of your ignorance. All right. When you become capacitated and you're able to really read the book of your DNA and get back to those inner capacities and potentialities that have been dormant, that's when you're able to do all of these things. Basically, you're able to reawaken your higher faculties, to be able to see through time, to be able to read others like a book, read yourself like a book. You know, it's very, very different. If you're like, you know something, if I don't clean up this mess, imagine this is me, all right? If I don't wash this coffee cup, it's going to grow some mold and get gross. I'd better clean up this coffee cup. You got it? Like, that's me actually in my studio. I leave things all the time, all around. I have to wash them up. In your body, like if I don't clean up this crap over here, it's going to get moldy and gross and grow funguses and make diseases. Clean it up. Once you have that ability to see and perceive and to anticipate the future effectively, you can respond to that future and to avoiding those seeming inevitabilities that are now not so inevitable, that you are much more capacitated to clean that up. and so much more. This is what it is to live as a galactic citizen. So let me make sure that I'm getting through all of the important stuff here as I'm heading into the end of class. So everything that I've taught you about DNA and its behavior and things that are based in the science of this time is all meant to be backstory to be able to comprehend what is going on with DNA. Sometimes your DNA is split apart, and then you can create different dance partners in terms of these protein structures and rewrite the telephone book into something that is more meaningful. But also what you can do is when the DNA is getting supercoiled, and again, supercoiling is when you are twisting DNA up, like rolling up your socks to put them in your carry-on. When you get to a certain point, the DNA is curled up into a level of complexity that is analogous to a torus, a donut, but it's many, many, many donuts stacked up. Let's go to this picture. The stacking of the many donuts. You can imagine here you have a DNA coil, and all of these are donuts stacked up kind of vertically next to each other with the donut holes going like this. You can put a flying rainbow lasagna or multiple flying rainbow lasagnas, toroidal, hypertorus structures amidst those toroids. Get them jumping to the left and right like this. Go back to my face. Donuts are all like this, like kind of like a long tunnel of donuts. When you fly rainbow lasagna, you can get those donuts jumping back and forth. And what happens when that happens? You're taking a slice or a scoop of the reality structure of this donut and a slice or a scoop of this one and superimposing them. And you can choose. What if you take two books, not only one book, like one book, I'm going to take it, I'm going to rewrite the phone book. What if I'm going to splice the phone book with a boring technical manual about a lawnmower? And I begin to take artistically some of this information from the phone book and some of this information from the lawnmower book and put them together. And then where my fingers are crossing, I create an entirely new story that is great literature, that is poetry, that is a song of the ages, eternal, beautiful poetry that is a song of the ages. This is what you can do with aspects of your DNA, because your DNA sometimes has, here's a part of the story that's all the way over here that never touches on this part of the story over here. But what if I can splice, change, and then intersplice those two chapters? All of a sudden, I write a completely new story. That is what happens due to that flying rainbow lasagna-ing activity in the process of partial supercoiling. All of these things are vibrating together and creating a new reality structure. This is literally huge amounts of freedom that are not daunting to you, but that are severely perturbing and inconvenient to the ongoing disempowerment reality structure that says, hey, you're just, stupid and stuff just happens to you and it's strictly deterministic and, you can't do anything about it. Abandon hope. There's nothing you can do. And I'm being facetious in case you can't tell. No, don't abandon hope. There's an enormous amount that you can actually do. And that has to do with empowerment for your body structure. And again, flying rainbow lasagna, when you return to factory settings, does not mean that you're all of a sudden going to have like 12 eyes or hair that is purple or something that is grotesque and bizarrely distorted. It means returning to what you're actually supposed to be shaped like and the way your body is actually supposed to be behaving and perceiving, and also your flight through time and the entirety of the time field becomes changed and transformed within that contextual relevance of changing and shifting reality. So personally empowering for you in writing a new story for your own life, revolutionary when it relates to the larger field of consciousness and time that you navigate within. Your own journey reflects and has an impact on everything. So I already got into, I'm just going through my notes here. I should ask the question, how do I actually change? But that this changing and morphing is happening on a planetary level. How do you change and morph? Like first you start off with changing your ideas, your thought structures, and your belief systems. That's big. Like, thank you for being here, watching my videos, listening to my voice. This is a big part of how you actually begin to change DNA behavior. Just like at one point you were a tiny, vulnerable child and someone said to you, come here and, sit down with me and let me tell you about death. And one day it's going to happen to you. No, I'm joking. But in that same level of like, vulnerability and opening yourself up to new ideas, I come forward to you and I say, sit down next to me. I have actually a better story to tell you, that since 21 or 22 years ago, you have a new option available to you that does not involve participating in the erroneous and outdated program that is known as death, where you can actually experience something very, very different. And it can happen with flying rainbow lasagna, and it can happen to you. So this is also a brief aside. There are many, many amazing teachers and avatars that have come into this world. And some of them have come into this world with the sense of saying that they came in as a special and unique form of matter, literally, like the stories of Lord Krishna being born as a human being, but his body, even as a baby, was miraculous and supernatural. He was made out of special stuff, even from a baby. And same thing with Lord Jesus Christ and some other of these amazing teachers. Like, they came here made out of special stuff. And although human beings can aspire to that level of attainment, there's always this kind of sense of like, well, like you came here like that, like you already had that specialness. I come here as a waveform impulse that is like a song of reality and a song of truthfulness into a body that had the same limitations and difficulties that your own body has. This is part of my work and my job joy at being here. It's kind of like saying like, oh, like that's what they're up against. I'm going to have to go in there, level playing field, same challenges, and figure out a way to do this that I can show to other people. So I came into this body that was like, of course, like you guys all have unique and special bodies. So you're not interchangeable parts. But the body that I came into was not like the special marzipan body, like Krishna and some of these other godly forms, like they, whatever, have amazing bodies when they first come in, came into a body that had like these challenges and genetic limitations, just like you are born into, and was even in the process of death and metabolic death and profound biological distress. And what I've been doing is showing you, how do you change and rearrange the puzzle pieces of your DNA in order to achieve what would be considered, from the previous standpoint, superhuman capacitations, but which really are your factory settings, to get back to just regular human. But in this world's definition, it is superhuman. So first step in becoming a flying rainbow lasagna is you do something like take my class here, where you are learning new thoughts and new feelings, learning new reality structures. You listen to stories and you listen to words and explanations. And this intellectual approach begins to change the way that your DNA is dancing. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what is the actual dance? And again, like it's like playing a symphony on a piano. It's a whole experience of what you do, but basically you cultivate and generate bliss, which is a flow state of frictionless consciousness flowing through your body, and as you are also flowing through time. And just like dance means that there are artistic movements that you make in conjunction with musical waveforms. The flying rainbow lasagna is a dance that you do with your DNA. So your DNA is actually moving at very, very fast paces. It moves at its, twisting and furling and unfurling pace as fast as a jet engine. And what it's doing when you begin to dance is you dance in conjunction with the larger partner of the sun, the stars, larger creation mechanisms of time, great composer, the great conductor that are telling you how fast to go. I also say that doing flying rainbow lasagna is similar to the double Dutch jump rope, where you've got two strands that are lateral waveforms that, in order to do this exercise of double Dutch jump rope, you have to kind of pace yourself, get ready, then jump in, and then move your feet very, very, very fast within that larger pattern. This is what flying rainbow lasagna is. You have larger harmonic time patterns that are like the double Dutch jump ropes. They're going, and you're like, okay, I'm going to put on some awesome music. I'm going to drink my superfood coffee. I'm going to get up to speed, and then I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump, and I'm going to move my DNA architecture in complementary conjunction with all of those much, much larger vibrating patterns of time. And in doing so, I'm going to be affected, upheld, and uplifted in buoyancy throughout time. And I'm also going to affect and send out my own personal flavor of music to the time field, which is part of your job, Joy, and part of your experience and right at being here in the world. You're supposed to be a beautiful musician, listening to the other musicians, internalizing their music, internalizing the potentials of your own music and your own body and your own trajectory through time, and adding to that music. So yeah, you're supposed to be here as a sacred divine musician. You're supposed to hear and know the notes that are coming. Hear and know the notes that are coming by using your beautiful inner crystalline sensing structure. And then sometimes you jazz, or like Jimi Hendrix, you improv, you play new notes in new patterns that you've never done before that sound awesome. And that is the height of virtuosity. That is what you begin doing. You begin to spontaneously generate new, unpredicted patterns of reality. That there is a huge amount of personal responsibility, yes, joy, yes, also strength in the system. When we look at an artificial intelligence system, part of what is not strong about it is it moves in prescribed predictable patterns that then poop out. It's like, okay, there's no more energy for that. There's no more nothing for that. It's not very impressive or innovative. It doesn't have longevity, because systems that can't create and generate new stuff don't have longevity. In order for the system known as the symphony of life to continue to have longevity and go onward and keep on transmitting information forward throughout time in this major supercomputer, biological, multicellular supercomputing, where you're a node on a processor of this amazing computational system, you need to be able to generate new stuff. That means, what if there's like there's some kind of crazy crap heading towards me? What do? I don't know. Let's read a book. The book doesn't tell me anything. What do? Now you're going to have to innovate. You got it? Like in a series of circumstances that would lead to extinction. If you did not innovate, you are going to have to innovate. That was me in a higher dimensional plane, looking at the series of events and saying, there's a bunch of crazy crap headed our way. If I don't do something, we're not going to have existence and longevity. Nothing written in the book. There's nothing in the instruction manual about this. I'm going to have to write a new chapter called Flying Rainbow Lasagna in order to supersede the seeming end of the story and keep things going. This is the response, the necessity, the innovation that came from the necessity to be able to create a new reality structure. And in me solving that equation or problem for one particular biological organism, the door is then opened, and I continually hold the door open for anyone else who wants to similarly solve, change, and transform for their own unique trajectory and for the entirety of the planet that you're on. So not just something that was an egocentric convenience, not just something that is a positive uplift for me, something that solved for a problem that I was experiencing, and then also creates an open door of reality, positive restructuring solutions for anyone else who chooses to in free will. And some of you go directly to this. What about psychopaths? What about evil ones? What about if they lasagna? If they choose to lasagna, it does not mean that they get access to an endless amount of energy to sustain them in their out of shapeness, in their dysfunctional forms, in their grotesquerie. It means that they get access to all of the corrective information that tells them you're not shaped right, and you're not doing things right, and you're not going in the right direction. And if you are shaped like that, you should go to entropy. That's it. And the entropy is a merciful end to their suffering of being deformed or energy out of place, or something that is stuck in a place where it can't get back to the source. It doesn't have a pathway to get back there effectively. Before I get more to your questions, let me just make sure that I've got everything proper over here. So in the recorded lessons, I did a little bit more about biological, cellular science, and also what hormones are and how that relates to this concept of flying rainbow lasagna. But the basics are flying rainbow lasagna within the unzipped DNA, and then flying rainbow lasagna within the supercoiling of your DNA. And the big takeaway that when you do something on a tiny subcellular level with your little dances and your little vibrations, it relates to the bigger, larger energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates and uplifts and upholds you throughout your life. So your tiny dances that are changed and respond to new thought structures, like what I'm teaching you about today, transforms into your larger energy field, which is your connection to time. It translates into the Earth's time field. My work here over the past 21 years has positively contributed to the changing transformation and metamorphosis of Earth's time field. And I know that you come out of the time of the boogeyman in the closet that caused the destruction of DNA and demolishment of your levels of consciousness, plunged down into what is known as the fall, but is also like, that guy didn't fall, he got pushed. That's all I'm saying. All right. Not an innocent fall, but or even whatever, blame the victim fall, but in the sense of, yeah, you were very, very much put down into levels of diminishment. So not just that level of the primary trauma and the invention of the experience of death or the invention of mortality, but also the sense of being recapacitated to experience time in a different and in the way that it was intended to be experienced, and to not be distracted by false narratives. There's more that's coming as I'm trying. Some false narrative is trying to distract me because they always put up defense when you're trying to shoot a basket, when you're trying to do something that actually matters. Just give me a few moments while I go through my notes and make sure that I've gotten everything else that's important. The end of Atlantis, the primary trauma, the rectification of that primary trauma, changing your mental state, changing your thought processes, changes the behavior of your DNA, which then changes your reality structures, changing of the planetary structure. Oh, there is a higher intelligence which determines what aspects of genes are going to be expressed. That is big. So you basically, you reconnect, you go back to factory settings, you reconnect to the factory itself that then gives you the update. Like you haven't been updating your phone for 20,000 years. Like you're going to have to update your OS. And when you get those updates, there's a higher intelligence which determines which aspects of your genes are going to be expressed. And that when you align with higher intelligence and get those regular software updates, quote unquote, for your body, that is going to have an impact on not only your genetic behavior, but on your flight through time. And how do you do flying rainbow lasagna? It is more than just a sense of like learning about a bunch of intellectualisms, just like flying rainbow lasagna. When you do muscle building, you do more than just look at your arm and be like, get bigger, like get stronger. Like you actually think things, but then those things make you do things that have an impact on your physicality structures. So getting access to broader and more powerful thought structures is not just mere like, okay, great, intellectualism, I have new thought structures inside, but they change to behavioralism and expressions in a larger sense. Okay. In terms of your DNA and what you're working with right now, the primary traumas that brought you to a diminished state, a pattern was imposed upon you and you danced like everyone around you. That was like the information that was available to you at that time. But now you have a new option. You no longer have to dance like your ancestors or your cultural context and paradigm. You can now dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. It is offered to you as a free will choice and something that you can choose to learn to do and to align with. So yeah, this is my message as a walk-in. I'm a consciousness newcomer to this physical form. And the reason that I'm here is not merely to say like, hey, like look at this painting or this sculpture or listen to my music. The message really is, I'm a flying rainbow lasagna and I vibrate like this. And if you want to, you can vibrate your genes and your DNA like that too. That is it. It is a free will choice. And that free will choice is offered to you. You couldn't say that you had freedom if you never could read the menu and know that that was even something on the menu. You would get to your afterlife and be like, that's not fair. I didn't even know that flying rainbow lasagna was on the menu. So this is also part of cosmic law to be like, okay, like at this critical juncture in human development and consciousness development, you have to be offered the opportunity to be able to say, do you want to continue in these ancient cultural and ancestral dance genetic behaviors, or do you want to dance in a new way? And just as a brief aside, this isn't in my notes, but like I go around to parks and everywhere, like I have for 20 years, see little children playing, and I'm always friendly, and I'm always like, hi, little guy. Sometimes these little people who are sometimes pre-verbal are like, lasagna, like they see me, they know me, their eyes go so big, and they're like, like they reach out for me, they want to hug me. They are very much in alignment with new dance movements for their life experience here as being an embodied human. And it's totally free will choice. And some little kids I wave at, I say hi to, and they kind of shrink back. They're afraid. Sometimes they hide behind their moms. Sometimes they kind of go into their mom's coats, like, like put it over their head. They're like, no, get away from me. I don't want lasagna. I'm like, that is totally fine. That is what I am here to do. Offer something. Offer it on a plate. Say, do you want this genetic structure? Do you want to be or sound or behave like me? And if you pull your head into your coat or run for your parents, running for your parents is kind of like saying, I like my ancestral journey. I like my ancestral patterns over here. I like mommy's pattern. I like daddy's pattern. I don't want to be different than them. Get away from me. I'm like, okay, fine, fantastic, great. And some of them are like, I want to play with you. And they come right over to me. And sometimes I have beautiful interactions with them. I'm always very clear and have very clear boundaries. I'm like, that is your mommy and your daddy. That those are the people that are taking care of you. And I offer you a new way of doing things, a new way of shaping your reality, and loving you in that sense, but that you still have like a family of origin that you love very much. That is what this is. It's basically like saying, do you wish to align with a new reality structure that is different than your ancestral paradigm? Or do you wish to stay in alignment with your ancestral paradigm? And both of these are acceptable things, but they are definitely different worlds. And that's just a very that's a reductionist simplification of people's inner choices that also happen in adulthood beyond like children that I'm looking at on the playground. Also happens in adulthood, also happens with these videos, also happens with my artwork. Some people gravitate or are attracted towards me and what I share. They are on that journey, making that choice and saying, yes, I align with this and I wish to make these changes and offer myself to this different level of reality. And some people are like running in the opposite direction. They're like, get that lasagna away from me. I'm running away from it. I like my old patterns. I like my old paradigms and I want to stick with them. Totally cool. That I'm here literally to offer an optional, not mandatory. That is why I also call this class the Advanced Jazz Band. It is optional, not mandatory. Your body is your instrument. You can play this jazz with me. It is part of a free will choice. So part of what I read about in my notes here is change must be according to free will. I cannot come in and impose this new dance of DNA upon someone else's free will. I have to make it available to offer it and to show it to someone else who finds it interesting and wants to learn to do the embodiment themselves. We are, of course, all affecting one another nonetheless. You're in a band, you're hearing other people's music. They are affecting you whether you like it or not. But please also understand that even if the entire world is playing out of tune music, you are not obliged to play that out of tune music. And even one good musician is enough to positively impact this whole entire reality. And we have a beautiful band. We have many more than just one adequate musician in terms of creating a new reality structure. That is a different way for your biological multicellular body container to work, and also a different way to restructure your you got to have a band to play music with, so you're not just one guitar. We have many, many more than one guitar. So DNA thoughts, verbalizations from others comes inside and affects you, and so to your own thoughts and emanations and DNA vibrations emanate out and affect others. So as a walk-in on a mission, I'm here consciously affecting the DNA of the people and organisms around me, but not imposing it on others. And I display the potential of what can be achieved with an anthropomorphic form in this time and place. And this is what lasagna can be. And you have the option of beginning to move your DNA in these ways. Recognizing that the FRL shape embodies the knowledge that the singularity is in two places at once. So this is a big part of that metamorphose, changing your inner structure to comprehend that the singularity defined by its singleness can actually be in multiple positions at once by placing it in a context. That's big stuff. And that you do yoga of the perception and exercises and stretching in order to be able to begin to move up to and encompass those areas of overarching consciousness. You learn new ideas and new thoughts and have a new behavioral example and a new pattern. And all of this is about employing your free will. I didn't get enough into this connection to extraterrestrial and extra dimensional entities. And that has to do with the origins of humanity. The boogeyman in your closet, primary trauma. I will circulate back to that thought that got blocked from me. It's like saying, why do you have to unhack your system? Why do you need to fix your DNA structure and to regain higher consciousness and control and divine guidance? Because you've had something bad happen on your planet that took you far away from your GPS system, and you need to be able to get back there. So everything about my work is about saying, flying rainbow lasagna, get back in touch with the factory, get the software updates and upgrades you're supposed to have so that you can be behaving like you are truly supposed to be. And this brings closure to the cycle of unfairness when people were cut off from their higher faculties. You're able to jump over the genetic blockages. And if you think about all the thoughts that you are limited from thinking, this is big, that you can't even conceive of, that you can't even think because your DNA is malformed. There's a whole bunch. I'm now waving my arm around in the large area of thoughts that humans can't even think, that they don't even know that they're in existence because your capacity to think and to perceive and your cognition has been limited by these consciousness invaders. That's a lot of stuff. And that this is a recapacitation so that you can even like be literate, read, and even know what is going on. And getting to this moment is the base camp on the mountain of understanding, a vantage point from which to continue to learn more. So flying rainbow lasagna, like much of what I teach, is not like instant light switch, magic wand, now you know everything. It is more like, now you finally have the light switch on so that you can even begin to comprehend things better in a more whatever well-informed environment. Pedro is saying, oh, like different notes in the music. So I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Melissa says, it makes sense that our consciousness affects and directs our DNA along with the greater cosmic consciousness, because the mere fact that trillions of cells all getting DNA direction and all resulting in a type of coherent music rather than trillions of many different ideas and directions. Yes, you have an overarching consciousness or sense of self that directs the trillions of musicians that are known as the multicellular orchestra that is your body. And they all relate to and listen to you as the primary conductor of your biological container. We have Earth, biological container. We have Sun as biological container, conductor of this solar system. And then you have galactic center, conductor, biological container that is conducting all of us with our complexity. So you can also get like the levels of complexity are staggering. This is part of the larger protection mechanism of a system that is not made out of clones. And don't get me started on cloning. Cloning is actually an aberrance, a thing that should not be in existence, and something that goes against the music of divine architecture, that you're actually not meant to be like, oh, well, that I'm just going to take a skin scraping of you, and if you die, we'll just bring you back in a clone container. No, 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 that is not supposed to happen. Please understand that in the larger context, that is an insult and an offense to God and to the time field itself. Tricia says we need to focus our collective energies on one reality structure at a time. Otherwise, our collective reality creation seems fragmented through our different realities, boxes, matrices. You know what I would say? There is in complementariness, like whatever you are thinking of in terms of your own life and what you want to have happen, or your version of ideal Earth and what you want to have happen, there actually is like a Venn diagram, areas of overlap. where your ideal world overlaps with others' ideal world in a way that is extremely complementary. So you don't have to necessarily have total conformity. Like the whole idea of AI systems and the Borg and the things that are not healthy in terms of human consciousness structures that people are forced to interact with and be a part of is the sense of conformity, when what you really need to have is total individuality. The system is actually made to be able to accommodate for total individuality, even while there is an overarching positive push or movement towards rectification and things going in the right direction. But even if you had 10 million different people and you had 10 million different versions of a positive reality, that would still be acceptable, because there is a way for all of those reality versions to be complementary to one another. So please know that you actually don't have to be motivated to be like, grab someone else by the shoulder and be like, you better think of the right reality. Otherwise, we're going to be at odds with each other. And I want us to be in a happy world. Like, you better get happy. I'm being joking and facetious, of course. You can allow people and be like, I allow you to envision your own greatest level of reality. And I envision my greatest level of reality. And that there is an overlappingness in these greatnesses that we envision, to be able to be respectful of other people's journey and uniqueness of consciousness, and not to be destroyed or inconvenienced by their limitations or their difficulties or their poop or their dirty socks and their dirty laundry. That's their stuff, and you get to have your stuff. So it's actually a very positive, pristine system. Pedro says, can the rectifying of a timeline bring back someone who died or bring someone into your life? Like, now you are single, but after rectifying, you're married with children. These are beautiful questions. So I don't actually ascribe to this sense of when you fix everything up, wave magic wand, and then people will suddenly reappear whom have departed, like those loved ones and other things like that. Because I know that there's a great sorrow and a rift, like you have grief and loss when someone else is dead. They are dead on your timeline, but they do exist and they are alive in a parallel complementary reality. But in their reality where they are alive, you are dead. And the real answer to the rectification happens at the convergence of all timelines, where you all get back to the source. That is the place where everybody who was dead appears alive again. So I'll use me and my cat as an example, and I'll be fast because I have a session at 4:30. So just moving through this. On one timeline, my cat died. Another animal attacked her and she died, a very sad but valiant warrior's death. And then I cried a lot. On a different timeline, from her perspective, she stayed alive. She went out on the front porch. She was not attacked by another animal, but what happened was, maybe I went out to buy cat food one day and never returned. I died, a Mack truck smashed into me on the road and I never returned. Our timelines diverged. She remained alive on another area of the time field that I no longer have access to. And I remained alive in an area of the time field that she does not have access to. This is the mechanical truth of what is happening when we have loved ones who have died. It doesn't bring them back when you begin to rectify, but what happens is their timeline trajectory and your timeline trajectory reconverge in ascended masterhood of both of you. So both of you, the eternal forms that you are, end up meeting again. Parallel lines meet at infinity. You meet at the convergence point. The other part of your question is interesting. It wonders, like, if you rectify the time field, like, I was supposed to marry that girl, but I did it. That was a problem with the time field. Now that I rectify the time field, do I all of a sudden wake up one morning, flip the light switch and find out, like, I'm married to that girl and I'm on that level of reality of what would have happened if I had actually experienced those things? I don't think that that is what happens either, even though I think that that would be a fun and interesting, fictional movie to explore, like, of all of a sudden, like, because you would have your memories of the wrong timeline, but all of a sudden be reinserted into the right timeline. Similarly, I don't think that that is what happens to us when we get rectified. But let's say the person that you were meant to be on the timeline where you were married is who you actually become. You learn and embody those lessons and achieve those levels of wisdom and divine perfection of that those life experiences would have given to you had you not been perturbed and brought away from those life events. But I don't think that you necessarily wake up and be like, my beautiful wife and my house and everything the way it's supposed to be. I don't think that it's that way, because I think that in the unfairness of the things that we've been experiencing that are not ideal reality structures, We actually don't flush it all down the toilet, just like flying rainbow lasagna is not the magic eraser that erases everything like an amnesia mind wipe. And you wake up one day and you're like, I don't remember any of that bad stuff. I only remember here a divine perfection, because you need to get the antibodies. You need to remember the wrongnesses and the effed up crapola that you went through as a way of learning. That's actually the things that you have been through. You are going to want to maintain them and not just throw them out the window, but you're also going to want to maintain with the ideal reality structures. So a more accurate telling would be to say, you'll be able to see the version of reality where you would have married that girl versus the version of reality that you're presently on, and the areas of coincidence where they overlap, but then the areas where they don't overlap. And you'll be able to compare and contrast, like the unicorn tapestry, the front of the way that these pictures look versus the incomprehensible backside where it's all knotted string. You'll see the knotted string of the multiple layers of your own reality structure and the things that didn't happen but should have happened, unfairnesses, and then the rectification. So you end up with the totality experience of the rectification and everything that you're supposed to be, remembering the injustices, but healing the injustices, but not throwing those injustices out the window, because there actually is a reason why you've been through these challenges. And Chris says, is our DNA only connected to us being human, or does it transcend our humanness as well and influence our deeper soul essence as well? Which is the chicken, which is the egg? Beautiful question. Thank you for being in this class. The answer is your DNA within one species is only a slice of who you are. You have your soul provenance, whom you have been across many different, they could be human experiences, and they could be Caucasian or African or Aboriginal or from the ancient Hindu empire. They could be anything, not just your biological heritage of who you are now, like going back to Northern Ireland or something like that, but also does relate to your experiences as a microbe or as a worm or as a redwood tree or as a planet or as a photon of light, that your DNA as a bridge of light and as a narrative structure of your journey absolutely relates to the entire soul provenance of everything that you've been and everything that you've been going through. Rectifying and dancing a new dance now telescopes backward into the past, projects forward into the future, and radiates outward on all sides. It affects all of the levels of your being. It's deep stuff, even to the level of the planet, of light and photons itself, and to the sun and the stars itself. So healing and rectifying in this generation and doing ascension as opposed to death affects everything. And even if there was one cool person doing that, it would be enough to affect the entire time field. And there's more than just one of us doing this. So Trish says, so you have created the FRL here, but it is the way you oscillated into here. Oh, this is good. I know you're just questioning this. Is an FRL the way your pure light collective oscillates? And you've created the way to define it for us here. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for your asking for clarity, because I always love these opportunities to really explain and describe who I am. Before I created Flying Rainbow Lasagna in 2001, in order to come here and have and create this experience, no, my Aurora collective had never lasagnaed. There was not a pre-existing Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and no one had ever done it there or here at all. When I do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, where did I create it? I would say I created it halfway overlapping in a physical body, but also outside of physicality in hyperspace. It is the way that I oscillated into here. So again, it exists here, but it also exists there or in a higher dimensional state itself. And my pure light collective actually is kind of like taking my song and making it their own. They're like, oh, Aurora just did something really new. She just created this whole entire new melody structure. Like everyone here in physicality is dealing with that. And my consciousness collective is also dealing with that too. They're like, like that's all new. Like this is all new. Then this is all new. And this is all new. They are having to spontaneously respond to this new creation as well. Very, very much so in the experiences that I am having here. It affects them a lot. So I get a ton of support in my mission and in my purpose and being here. And also I am changing that level of self-experience too. And so it's a restructuring of many, many different levels of reality. I've created the way to define it for us here. So that's the question of like, is everybody perfect up there, out there, and they're all doing the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and everything is great, and everybody down here is screwed up and messed up, and they're like, you guys are going to have to learn lasagna. The answer really is that everybody everywhere is having to learn about lasagna as something new and respond to it as something new. And that is a beautiful mutualism of the things that need to be rectified here in the biological realm, and then also the impending imbalances that would happen at the level of pure consciousness. It's actually a very, very beautiful question, but I will tell you that I'm a cosmic troublemaker, even as I am a rectifier, because I'm like, oh, like she just did that. They're like, oh, she just did that. Yeah, I just did that. And that means all of this other stuff is going to change. It literally means all of these prophecies and expectations that had been valid up until that point now are not valid, and things are moving in a vastly new direction. And guess what? Every time I do the dance, it's like, oh, she just did that. Yeah. And then she did the dance again. Oh, now it's like that. Yeah. And now it's like that. Yeah. And I'm dancing all the time. So it is a constant responsiveness to constantly new, ever-changing facets of reality that both my consciousness collective on the stellar network and consciousness that is here in the biological realm are having to respond to. If you have more questions about that, that's cool, because I know that's a big, deep one. Joanne says, so lasagna is helpful for all entities. Thank you for that. You're very welcome. It is helpful for all entities and all energy, and that even includes the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, light itself. Melissa says, not just thinking things, but actually doing things connects to the idea that we don't just have oi gbiv without the red, very good, but also red, which relates to the physical, the area where we manifest. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I stand up and cheer. This red edge over here is like the stage upon which all of these other vectors and forces and characters and players are able to come and interact. Physical world is a sacred, beautiful, divine opportunity realm, not an inconvenience or disposable place. This is the place where all these stuff things happen. All of these stuff things come together and happen here. It's an incredibly valuable opportunity, an incredibly valuable place. And again, not some place that I would just want to dispose of because there's dirty socks, dirty coffee cups, growing mold. You have to clean it up. Trisha says, Aurora, could we be fractals of your pure light collective in a denser realm, much denser realm? Yeah. And I love you. Thank you for saying that. The answer is big yes. And I hug you, because the reason why I am here influencing people and consciousness in this time place is so that you have an opportunity to become a part of my pure light collective, which is known as Aurora. Like, you literally become a part of me. I am back here in time, backbending here in time in the most loving and responsive way that I possibly can be, talking to aspects of myself and saying, hey, go in this direction, go over here, do this, dance like this, do this, go over here. And then the influencing of your minds, your lives, and your trajectory and planting those seeds in your consciousness is what brings you up the mountain to these other levels and layers of being that are where I exist in what you would call your future, but is really a place outside of time, space, and dimensionality. It is inevitable that you become a part of that me collective. And that's why I'm here talking to you, because if I didn't come here and talk to you, there wouldn't have been a causality structure of how you would know about these things and how you would know how to climb the mountain or how to transform yourself to be able to be a part of me. So please know that you are there. You are up there, out there in a place that is beyond the present determination of time, space, reality. And that in order for you to get to be a part of that level of consciousness and experience, you have been listening to my videos, learning from me, looking at my body, looking at my artwork, and imprinting upon it, and that has an impact on your journey, and that I consciously know that I'm doing that, and we are in consensual rapport in doing this, and that I'm totally loving in the sense of offering you these opportunities. I really, really mean it when I say this. You can't start a positive relationship based on lies. So as I've come here for 22 years or so, I've been very honest about who I am, where I come from, what I'm doing, what are my motivations. I've been out of the closet the whole entire time. There's no big reveal. I am truly a loving, responsible cosmic citizen that is here in order to bring you into greater levels of cosmic maturity and totally rooting for you on your journey, even as I am on my particular cosmic journey. And again, I've made the journey from where you are in your perspective before, but why I'm backbending here again, essentially like I'm a PhD, but why am I here like in grade school again? Because what I have not done before is made sure that you have a graduating class in a time that is a very crapped up time. That if I didn't do this, you wouldn't be able to get to be where I am. And there would be like a big empty hole. There would be empty puzzle pieces. So it's 4:30. I actually have an appointment to be able to do a session with someone, but let me just go through this super fast. Joanne says, I appreciate free will. And Trisha spoke to me privately. I like that. Joanne says, I do not appreciate the amnesia, so I'm happy that I won't wake up next to a stranger I'm suddenly married to. Totally a la that movie Dark City, where these like guys kind of just mentally eraser you and then put you in a new context. Like, no, actually the cosmos is like extremely responsible and won't do that to you. Rainbow Body has a question for me privately. Oh, that's a beautiful question. So Rainbow Body, in answer to your question about healing and receiving healing via free will, the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, there's consent that those energy pathways are open, because of course I only wish to act upon or influence people in their life in a way that I'm invited to. And I'm extremely responsible in doing that. Oh, and Trish asks me about, this is a private message, so I'm going to have to speak to you about that privately. Like, but she says halfway into here. Wow. Yeah, I'm halfway into here and I'm halfway out of here. Rainbow Body, I will also speak to you more in private about that. Okay. Trisha and Rainbow Body, talk to you lovely people later. Charlie B, thank you so much. Says in capital words here, thank you so much for being a cosmic troublemaker. Thank you very much for that. It is like Gatorade on my marathon and helps me so much. That those levels of recognition and appreciation help me so much in terms of helping me to go forward and encouraging me to keep going. And I thank you so much for aligning with my message and what I have to share. Truly, truly, thank you. Sorry, I'm rushing through this a little bit, but Trisha says, I think you are just an alchemist and you had to find your halfway through by being pure light, oscillating back to source all the time. Not just, but aren't we all? Yes, actually, there are many, many parallels in terms of my own life existence and the journey that you are all taking in terms of fractal microcosm, many, many parallels. So our journeys are unique to each one of ourselves, and not everybody is a walk-in, but yes, you're all alchemists. And I told you, my body did not start out as like magical marzipan over here, but I flying rainbow lasagna did and have turned it into this new type of matter. Hat tip to Melissa and our conversations, smatter, like spirit matter. Spirit matter is what I'm made of, and you can too. That's it. Matter that responds directly to thought. Pedro says, love the lasagna. I always receive in gratitude. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and for being a student here for so long. Rose says, thank you. Melissa says, love you all. Thank you, Aurora. You're so welcome. Thank you very much. And Trisha says, I think you have incremented the light in us and opened the truth portal for us to make this year, your 23rd year, and our 2023, the time we unplug and connect to the divine, pure truth timeline. It is my total intention for that to be the truth. Thank you for that. I align with that. I've danced that into being. It has been a very, very long journey. I jokingly talk about how I thought like my gig would be done in 2003 and I'm still here. I was incredibly naive and incredibly innocent, and I didn't know the levels of difficulty that you face here and how much it would take in order to dance and rectify it. It's been a long journey, but I'm getting chills as I say this. Let us absolutely envision for all of us the change and transformation and the intensity that can happen now in this year to be able to get back to that, calling it the divine pure truth timeline, factory settings, returning to that pure message of divine intelligence. Many people call it the organic ascension. May this be the year. And Rainbow Body says, sending love and gratitude. Love and gratitude received. Trisha says, but you're not going anywhere in freedom for sure. That's the whole point, guys. I'll close out our class today on this affirmation. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry about this. This is not, my journey is not, oh, and then one day Aurora keeled over and died. No. Or poofed away into a puff of smoke and left all of her artwork behind. No, I'm actually here for the duration. I'm actually here in order to bring this whole entire world into a redefined, newly expanded reality and then get to experience the good stuff with all of you. So again, this is not a sense of like escapism or getting out of here or something like that, where it's like, I think that's why I'm, I thought like, toss the lasagna over my shoulder, kapow, like I'm going somewhere else. No, I actually think that this is, walk in, walk out, walk in, walk out. No, actually, that's not what's going to go on. And what's going to go on is actually incredibly magical, incredibly satisfying. She says freedom and immortality. Yes, I come from a place that is an immortal place. I've come here into this mortal body in order to re-exemplify a different opportunity for us and for the whole entire planet. We're not going to die in a nuclear conflagration, and we're not going to die in some other form of catastrophe and destruction. That was the thing that the memory tried to take away from me. What is pole shift? The thing that I was talking about, the primary trauma. I'm so happy it circulated back before I ended this video. You're afraid of losing because of the traumas that you've had in the past. And part of the changes were pole shift. So you had a pole shift in the past that was north-south to south-north with crustal displacement and a huge amount of catastrophe that caused also a degradation in your consciousness. And you're afraid of the upcoming pole shift. You're like, oh, SHIT, I hope it's not going to be like the last one. It's primary trauma. But what this pole shift is going to be, inside to outside and outside to inside. The inner manifested as the outside, and then the outside re-looped back into the inner. And it's actually going to be a transformation that is positive, rectifies the traumas and heals the traumas of the past, and brings us back into the state of immortality that we all are supposed to be a part of. Huge hearts from Joanne, lots of love back to you. And Tricia says, I feel our energies aligning and aligning my spine. Beautiful. You can tell with me, guys, my spine goes up when I speak truth. So yeah, I'm happy that I remembered that. Again, pooties and other distractions happen. Pole shift, responding to your primary trauma of bad stuff that happened to you, that's boogeyman in the closet. It's not going to be the same. This time it's going to be different. And this time you're going to go into an expansive, positive, supported and supportive reality structure. That is what reality and life in physicality was always meant to be. So again, apologies because I'm 7 minutes late on this session that I have to do. So I'm going to have to wrap it up. But thank you so much. Oh, Trish is so beautiful. She says, we love you so much, our cosmic professor. Love received. Thank you. Again, Gatorade on my marathon. You guys are amazing. And I love you and appreciate you. And I thank you. I thank the people that are here in this class live. Thank the people that catch my archive and people that are patrons. I truly thank you so much for listening to me, ingesting these ideas, changing and transforming your own life into better trajectories, adding to the collective healing, being open to what I send out, and reflecting back so much beautiful love and positivity and appreciation to me. I truly am in gratitude for you, and truly am in gratitude for your recognition of my activities and my mission here. And I'm also telling you, like, when this transformation happens that is already ongoing, cosmic dance party, super cool, super fun, super awesome. Everything about the place where I come from and how we dance and are harmonic and create and share becomes exemplified in the physicality realm. Enormous positive uplift, enormous fun. Please keep your eyes on the prize. Please stick around for the miracle. Please keep going in your personal journeys. I'm going to end on that note of huge encouragement. And thank you so much to everyone who is with me on this journey. Thank you. Much love to you.